Call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council, Legislative Session 2024-22 for October 1st, 2024. Those that like to stand and join us in the Lord's Prayer and Pledge Allegiance, please do.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this, Lord, daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I am going to try to be as articulate as possible. I have 4 stitches in my bottom lip, and it wasn't my wife. She wanted me to make sure I told that to you. It was actually golf. If you didn't know it, golf is a contact sport in my world. Entertain a motion from council to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any discussions or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Consent agenda is approved. This time we have a proclamation to recognize Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Ms. Penny Bradford should be here. There you are. And it's going to be presented by Shani Shields. If you would, what we'd like to do is go around behind Shani and she'll read from the desk. Thanks for being here, and then we'll allow you to go to the podium and make any comments if you'd like.
Last year I made you get up.
This is a proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. It says, whereas October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is an annual campaign to increase awareness of this disease and increase the public knowledge about the importance of early detection of breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. And whereas research shows that clinical breast examinations and screening mammograms can help reduce the number of deaths from breast cancer among women. And whereas every woman is at risk for breast cancer, even if she has no family history or other risk factors for the disease. And screening and early detection of breast cancer are vital to the health and well-being of all women. Therefore, the Wicomico County Council hereby proclaims October as the National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Wicomico County and encourages all women to learn about their risks for breast cancer, talk to their health care provider about recommending breast cancer screenings, and be screened with clinical breast examinations and mammograms.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Let Laura get a picture real quick. And
Gonna break her
I
camera.
hate it too.
if you have any comments you'd like to make,
See you next year.
if you have any comments you'd like to make, you certainly could.
You can stand at the podium if you may.
No?
Hello? You want to make a comment?
Okay.
Thought I'd get
Not so fast.
appreciate the county recognizing us, and we're women supporting women. We've been here for 31 years, and all of the money that's donated, 72 cents of every dollar, stays here to serve our clients. And it's a great organization, and all of our services are free. If you need us, please call us. Please contact us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Hurley.
Good evening, Council President, council members, ladies and gentlemen. There are 4 public hearings on the agenda this evening. Each public hearing notice was published on the county's website and in the local newspaper. The first public hearing is on resolution number 129-2024. This is approving amendments to 2 solar facility site lease agreements by and between the Community Power Group LLC in Wicomico County, Maryland, for the establishment of a 2.0 MWOC facility and the second for a 1.5 MWOC facility. Council had a work session on this request on September the 3rd, 2024. As a summary for the public hearing, Wicomico County is considering amendments to a lease for a solar project near the airport. The county anticipates energy savings of approximately $9.4 million, and with the revenue collected for rent and the pilot agreement, the savings is about $12.4 million, and these savings are consistent within the industry. I also want to mention that this resolution and the next resolution, which is approving the solar power net purchase agreements, are related. And we do have Mr. Tony Rudy here, our Director of Aviation, if you have any questions.
So at this time, we open the floor for public hearing on Resolution 129, 2024. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in regard to this specific resolution, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concern. That concludes the public hearing on Resolution 129, 2024. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 129, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 129, 2024 passes unanimously.
Okay, next is Resolution Number 130-2024, approving an amendment to the solar power net purchase agreements between the Community Power Group LLC and Wicomico County related to solar facilities.
Get a motion from council to approve Resolution 130, 2024.
So moved.
Second. Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Resolution 130, 2024 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes.
The next item is a public hearing on Resolution Number 131-2024. This is to amend the fiscal year 2025 capital budget and to authorize the county executive to accept a special grant award in an amount up to $487,792 from the Maryland Aviation Administration to be utilized for the Airport Access Control Project Phase 2. As a summary, this grant award will be used for replacement and upgrades of the airport's current security system, which includes in Phase 2, access controls to airfield vehicle and pedestrian gates, as well as additional security cameras.
This time, we open the floor for public hearing on Resolution 131, 2024. If you have any comments you'd like to make in regard to this specific resolution, come to the podium, please. State your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. That concludes public hearing on Resolution 131, 2024. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 131, 2024. Second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 131, 2024 passes unanimously.
Okay, next is a public hearing on Resolution Number 132-2024. This is to amend the fiscal year 2025 capital budget and to authorize the county executive to accept and utilize the grant award funding from the state of Maryland for the Department of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism for video board improvements at the Arthur W. Purdue Stadium. As a summary, the state of Maryland approved a bond bill for $900,000 to complete video board improvements at Purdue Stadium. Since the funding was not included in the fiscal year 25 capital budget, this request is to amend the capital budget to add the funding and then to authorize the county executive to accept the grant funding from the state of Maryland. And Mr. Steve Miller, Director of Recreation, Parks, and Tourism, is here if you have any questions.
Thank you. This time, we open the floor for public hearing on Resolution 132, 2024. If you have any comments that you'd like to make in regard to this resolution, come to the podium, state your name, your county of residence, and your concerns. Seeing none, that concludes the public hearing on Resolution 132, 2024. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 132, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes.
Okay, next is a public hearing on Resolution Number 133-2024. This is to amend the fiscal year 2025 capital budget to reallocate fiscal year 24 unused pay-go funding to the Arthur W. Purdue Stadium to the playing field improvement project in the amount of $380,000. As a summary, this is an amendment to add a new project titled Purdue Stadium Field Improvements to the fiscal year 25 capital budget using pay-go funds in the amount of $380,000. This funding was previously approved in the fiscal year 24 capital budget for the Purdue Stadium Bowlers project, but the state of Maryland is now going to take care of the upgrade to the bowlers through a grant. So this request is to shift the money from the boiler capital project to the field improvement capital project. And again, Mr. Steve Miller is here if you have any questions.
So now we open the floor for public hearing on Resolution 133, 2024. If you have any comments you'd like to make in reference to this resolution, come to the podium, state your name, your county of residence, and your concern. And that concludes the public hearing on Resolution 133, 2024. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 133, 2024.
So move.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of Resolution 133, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution passes. Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Mr. Benson, good evening.
Good evening. Mr. President, County Council, we're here tonight on Resolution 126, 2024, which is a resolution to approve an application for a tax credit for a multifamily residential development property pursuant to Wicomico County Code Section 90-7. By way of background, in 2021, the state of Maryland, the legislature in Maryland authorized the Wicomico County to grant a property tax credit relating to hotels and residential development that was better known, I think, at the time and known now as the Horizon Tax Credit. The Horizon Tax Credit that change was made in Section 90-7 of the Wicomico County Code. And in that section, a tax exemption was approved for a hotel or multifamily residential area within a certain geographical area, which in this case relates to the downtown area or the building that's across the street near 132 East Main Street. For the record, I don't have anything to do with this, but my office was located at 132 East Main for more than 20 years. So just so there's no confusion, I have nothing to do with it beyond having been in that building for 20 plus years. The amount of the tax credit is set forth in the code, and it starts at 80% of the increased tax, property tax, goes down to 70, 60, 50, 40. It's a 30%. It's a 10-year tax credit. And the property tax credit, the county code requires that shall become available for an eligible building for the first year in which the building property taxes would increase due to construction and renovation. The increase must be in the amount of at least $10 million. And the application, property owner must make an application within 90 days of receipt of the assessment notice. After the application, there is to be a review by the finance department, and the application must be submitted for approval by the county executive and the county council. So this requires both the county executive and the county council to approve this jointly. In this situation, the property owner received a notice from the Department of Assessment and Taxation that his property tax went from approximately $2 million per year to approximately $30 million. That property tax notice was sent out on or about January 1st, 2024. The applicant filed an application for the tax credit on or about September 6, 2024. So the purpose of being here tonight is for the county to hear from the applicant with regard to the application for the tax credit and to determine whether the applicant is entitled to the tax credit. The fundamental problem is that the applicant was required to make the application within 90 days. The applicant made the application within 9 months, not 90 days. And the issue is, does that mean the applicant cannot get the tax credit? Can the county nonetheless waive the time requirement? And the applicant is here, as I understand it, to make a presentation to explain what happened. Again, the county code was amended in compliance with authorization from the county, from the state of Maryland. It's in the tax property article of the state of Maryland. I would just note that in Maryland, in the tax property article, there's a section 7104 that talks about exemptions and abatement of taxes, which are state abatements, and when those things have to be done. If an owner of property subject to an exemption on June 30th files an application on or before September 1st, so the notice would have come out in January. By law, I think the notices from the state are required to be out by January 1st, or thereabouts. There is no specific provision in Maryland about this that I see as to what the rights of the county are in this regard. I would note that as it relates to an assessment notice, in Maryland, if a property owner receives an assessment notice from the county, from the state, and disputes that assessment notice, they have a period of time within which to file an appeal. But in Section 8419 of the tax property article, there is a provision in the state law that says, notwithstanding the failure to file a protest of an assessment after the date of finality, the date of finality is January 1st. The appropriate official may issue an order decreasing or abating assessment to correct an erroneous assessment, to correct an improper assessment, or to prevent injustice. So the only point is that if you look for guidance in the tax property article in the state of Maryland, there is provisions to overlook a late filing, at least for an appeal on a tax assessment. The question here today is whether the county council and the county executive can waive that. Clearly, the county council could amend the provision. They could amend the provision. They could change the time requirement if they wanted to do that. Short of changing it, can they waive it? Would seem to me that the county could consider waiving it if they wanted to, but they would only be able to do that if they found that there was a good faith error made on the part of the applicant that explains why he missed the deadline, and that there would be no prejudice to the county. So the only other point I would make is that in the charter section, as I said, there is a requirement that there be a 90-day application made. I have gone back and I have reviewed the minutes from when this was adopted. I don't see anything in the minutes that says why the 90-day period was adopted. There are other tax exemptions that are permitted in the county charter, county code, and that section also has a 90-day requirement. My belief is that the 90 days is in there so that the application is made in a timely manner so that it would not affect the new tax year, which starts July 1st. So if an application is made by April 1st, the county finance office has time to calculate that into the budget that they're submitting for approval to the county council in June and July. If it's not done within that time period, the county can't count for that in it. Again, I don't find any guidance in the minutes as to why the 90 days is in there, but logically, I don't know of any other reason why the 90 days is in there. In this situation, if the county were to consider waiving it, clearly the tax credit abatement exemption could not take effect until July 1st, 2025. Otherwise, there would be an adverse impact on the county, and the county would be prejudiced by that. And then the question is, if you abate it or allow or waive it, can you do that and only, change it so that he only gets 9 years of a 10-year tax credit, or give him all 10 years or don't give him any? Those are your choices tonight. And you need to keep in mind that regardless of what action you all take tonight, if you were to decide to do something to waive it or recommend waiving it, that's only the first half, because the county executive still has to weigh on this. And at this point, my understanding is the county executive has said that she's not made a decision and will not make one until after the hearing tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 126, 2024. Second.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion. Mr. Simpson? Good to see you. Ms. Olin, I think, or Mr. Illuminati, I believe you had comments you wanted to make to help us with some clarification. I think what we're looking at, based on what Mr. Benson has said, is we recognize that what the discussion is tonight isn't really reliving or reworking what was already passed 3 years ago. We know full well what the intent of the Horizon program was and what the benefits were, or, whether you're in favor of it, pro and con, not really relevant tonight. The only issues we're really concerned about tonight are two issues. One is whether or not the investment was made as required of a minimum of $10 million, and the other one is in reference to the application process, if it was done in a timely manner, and if it was not done in a timely manner, what the reason may have been for that, and as Mr. Benson had suggested, whether there was what the intent was on behalf of the builder developer. So we'll start there. Mr. Simpson, would you like to go first?
Sure. Well, first I want to thank the leadership of the Wicomico County Council for putting together the Horizon program. I think it's not too far to say that it was the reason we were able to get the project out of the ground, and we were then able to invest, tens of millions of dollars into our community. And as Mr. Benson had referred, our assessment went from $2.1 million up to $30 million at the completion, which at the very start of paying taxes increases the Wicomico County revenue from $18,000 a year up to $65,000 on the first year of the taxes, and that's even with the credit. Over the next 10 years, the increased taxes will be $1 million instead of $200,000 directly to the county. And in fact, with the city and the county and the state combined, the Ross Building over the next 20 years, instead of paying $548,000, will pay to our community $7 million. And these credits are extremely important to the viability of a project like the Ross, which is a young business that is finding its stable, it is getting stabilized and it's finding its footing. And so these type of programs are absolutely critical, and I appreciate the vision of the council for putting these programs in place. Unfortunately, it seems as the program was rolled out, and it's understandable with any new program, there was some administrative, entanglements, if you will, that need to be sorted out so that the proper accounting and credits are applied to the project. Taking the clock back a little further, prior to the approval of the Horizon tax credit, the project was originally approved for the Enterprise Zone tax credit. And as some people might know or recognize, the exact same schedule, meaning the same credits over a 10-year period, are for the Enterprise Zone and for the Horizon. So the project, upon completion, we discovered that the Enterprise Zone tax credit was being given to the project. So our tax bill was reflective of the exact same discount that would have been applied if we had gotten the Horizon program tax credit. Once the error was determined, we looked then to go file an application with Wicomico County. And at that time, we discovered no application had been created at that time. There was nothing to even apply to. So we provided the application that was provided by the city of Salisbury, and it was nice to see that the exact application that we provided to the county was then adopted plus one question. So I think what we're looking here today, again, is not to discuss the merits of the program. That obviously is a separate conversation. But I think that it's fair to say a good faith error of not understanding which credit was being applied, and then looking to the council to then make sure that the correct accounting is put in place. And we're looking forward to just getting the Horizon program that was originally intended for the project, and not the Enterprise Zone as we have covered today.
Okay. All right. Ms. Owen, you had a comment?
So Mr. Simpson reached out to me. I got an email on 8/14 in regards to that, basically stated that, hey, I have this credit already on my tax and on my tax bill for the prior year. That was when it was determined that there was no application. We got him an application on September 5th. On September 6th, he submitted the county's application. So in about 20 days from the time of the first contact, he submitted the county's application. So in his 2024 tax year, the fiscal year that just ended, there was an enterprise zone tax credit, which the state provides the county that list of who gets enterprise zone tax credits. So we just apply those based on what the state gave us. 2025 tax bill came around, and there was no tax credit from the state for the enterprise zone on their list. So the full tax bill for the new assessment went out. I will say also, from the finance department side, on February, a bill dated February 1st was issued to Mr. Simpson for new construction, which was also a notification of the increased assessment. So I can't say whether or not he got the notice from the state, because I'm not privy to that. But I can say he got a tax bill from us showing the new construction bill that was due, and that was dated February 1st. And then he got his 2025 tax bill in July, both of which would have had the increased assessment on it.
Okay.
So he's currently getting an enterprise tax credit.
Not anymore. He got it in the 2024 tax year, which has passed, which has been, that bill has been paid. For the 2025 tax year and for the new there's no such thing as an enterprise zone tax credit on a new construction bill because it's a half-year bill as it is. This legislation did not take into account anything about a half-year bill. It only took into account the full-year bill. So the full-year bill went out in July, and it did not have an enterprise zone tax credit on it because we did not receive any information from the state, and we did get our enterprise list. And so a full bill went to Mr. Simpson for the full assessment of just over $30 million.
Nani?
So the consideration to qualify is the assessment has to go up at least $10 million. So you heard earlier, there was the lower number, there was the credits given when the property was undeveloped. Then once the property is developed, it went up more than $10 million. It's within the geographic boundary, so on paper it qualifies. Moving to section 90-7G, it requires affirmatively for a property owner must apply for a property tax credit within 90 days of receipt of an assessment notice reflecting the renovations or construction improvements. So that's that new assessment that the county sent on 2/1. It's the owner's onus to make the application to the Wicomico County Finance Department, which did not occur within those 90 days. That's what the law has. That's the consideration. There's not a broad good faith error claim. There's not a provision in the code to waive. G1 is explicit, 90 days. The application has to be made. The application wasn't made. Now, there are some room for issues such as, say, the 89th day.
You want water?
Yeah, I had it over there, and then.
Here.
All right.
Good catch.
Good thing it wasn't a golf ball.
So say on the 89th day, the application had been made, or the request for the application was made, but the county had not created the application. That falls into a different category where now it's the county's fault for not having that application available. To then hold it against the individual at that point would be improper.
Taylor, we don't need that, please. Thank you.
Would be improper at that point because the attempt to make the application was made within those 90 days. To date, I have not seen any evidence going back from the request for application of August 14th back 90 days indicating that a different assessment had been made within those 90 days.
I guess, yes, Mr. Simpson, go ahead.
I just want to add one more. The last bill that we had received, or at least the one that I think was circulated, is dated from July 1st, 2023 through June 30th of 2024, and indicated the enterprise zone tax credit. When we received our new bill, I believe this is when it really came to our attention, and that is certainly within a 90-day window of the end of this tax bill, and certainly something that would have caught our attention because it was significantly higher than what had been previously given to us. So I just wanted to put a few dates out there as well. And at that point, when we realized that an application needed to be created, we then provided the application that was drafted by Salisbury. And when it came back to us, it was sent back to the county within one business day. And I do apologize, I was attending a funeral. Otherwise, it would have been the same business day.
So my understanding is that your company was never qualified for the enterprise.
That's correct.
Because you're not a commercial entity.
That's correct.
So the misunderstanding occurred when you received a credit. It said enterprise fund, but you knew that you did not qualify for that. I'm guessing the assumption was a credit is a credit, however the county may code it. And was your thought process that once you received the tax credit, you thought that you were already receiving the benefits of the Horizon Program tax credit?
Absolutely. And in fact, I figured the county had I think everybody on our side had assumed that the county had found a way to apply this to enterprise zone to lessen, I guess, the investment from the county's perspective. But from our perspective, we saw a credit and assumed that we were then approved for the credit until.
But I thought it was clear that the enterprise tax credit, a building such as this wouldn't qualify because it's 100% apartment housing.
Not a question about whether it qualifies, it's whether or not the application procedure was followed. I don't believe that there's any issue, correct, Ms. Olin, that does not qualify.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm asking.
So-
It doesn't qualify, correct?
We're not here debating the credit that he got in 23-24, because that was a credit provided to us by the state for the enterprise zone. I have no control over getting that number. I don't. I am sent a report by the state. The state says, put these on the bills. We put it on the bill. That was 23-24 before their assessment went up. Their assessment went up in January 2024 for the tax year that starts July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. But because it was complete and done before, I think it's December 31st, there is also the issue of the fact that they were issued a bill in February for new construction. That bill was issued to his office, and it reflects the increased assessment at that point in time. So the hard part is what is considered the date of notice of assessment? Because he should have received something from the state in January. That's the way I read it, is that when you get notice from the state of your assessment, you have 90 days. Now, I can't tell when he got that. I have no control over that. I can say that we sent a bill in February with that increased assessment. So that would have been a second notice. So if you did the 90 days off of February 1st, again, it is still, the August date is late. I understand why what Mr. Simpson is stating with the tax bill for July 1st. That is the first full year with this new assessment, and he is within those 90 days. But from the way I read the law, it's from the date of the first notice of assessment. That would have been January, February timeframe, my opinion.
So for the purposes of the taxpayer, he did receive this credit, right?
He received a credit in last fiscal year.
I know that. I got the year. So he did receive it. but he didn't qualify for it.
I can't-
Or he should have gotten it.
Shane, I have no ability to talk about that issue. That's not the issue on the table. The issue on the table is whether or not council is going to approve the Horizon tax credit that is in front of you for 10 years.
I think his question is relevant, very much.
It's absolutely relevant.
I can't answer the question. I have no control over that question. I receive a report from the state. The state tells me to put it on a bill. We put it on the bill.
Mr. Illuminati, I believe you said it wouldn't qualify, correct?
The property qualifies
Qualifies for the enterprise
For-
tax credit.
for the Horizon.
Horizon.
We don't have access to his tax documents for anything prior. The application is for the 90-7 code tax exemption. That's the only thing that can be considered. There's not the prior was for the construction. He's constructed, he's built, that's why he got the assessment of over $10 million. So now he's in the new phase, he makes the application. The question is whether the application is the assessment notice that was sent in January, the bill sent by the county in February, or the tax bill of July 1st. That's the question on how to apply.
I guess I wouldn't understand how anybody could miss not getting a tax credit for 200 and some $1,000 when you get your tax bill, but anyway, I wasn't there, so. If you read the bill, this wasn't an entitlement. We approved the Horizon zone, is what we did. We didn't approve the Ross getting a tax credit 3 years ago. Correct? Everybody agree on that?
I concur.
The council agreed to the concept, and the way this is written is every application has to come back before council to make a decision, yay or nay.
That's enough. That's what I wanted to emphasize. Whether he's late or not really doesn't make a whole lot of difference. If we want to, what we're here tonight to do is to approve whether he gets this tax credit. If somebody builds a building on a parking lot down the street, they've got to come in front of us to get approved. We've approved the Horizon tax credit zone, the area. What's on the table tonight is whether we want to give a multi-million-dollar tax break to one building. That's what it all boils down to. There's no guarantee when we approved that 3 years ago that the Ross building was going to get this tax credit. None whatsoever. That's why that amendment was put in there, that it had to come back to the council and the county executive to be approved. So what we need to do tonight is, are we going to give a multi-million-dollar tax credit, or are we not? I've got a lot to say about this, as I usually do, unfortunately. I serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. We've approved, pre-approved.
Joe, can I try to just stop you 1 second?
I wish you wouldn't, John.
This is nothing to do with whether we believe in giving taxpayers money to any builder. This is only two issues: whether the funding was put into place, whether the investment was made, and whether the application was done in time, or whether we had the authorization.
No, John, that's
to waive
not
it.
right. We're
It
here
has
to
nothing
approve
to
whether
do
he
with the Horizon program.
gets the credit or not.
Exactly, but
Right.
through the processes we've talked about, not to relive whether or not we feel whether or not we're obligated to spend the taxpayers' money or not.
John,
We did that 3
Are
years
you
ago.
refusing to let me speak?
I'm trying to ask you to stay on point so
I'm
that
gonna
we don't
stay on
stay here
point.
until 10 o'clock
Okay,
tonight.
we won't be here until 10 o'clock.
All right, try
Okay.
to stay on target.
All right. So I serve on planning and zoning. We've approved millions of dollars worth of building, pre-approved buildings. There's a hotel going to be built in Fruitland right now, $11 million. They're not getting a tax credit. They're not getting anything. They didn't ask for one. Our citizens are paying more money due to inflation. How do we give out millions of dollars in tax credits to one developer? How do we do that? Is it fair to the rest of the citizens of Wicomico County? No, it's not. It's not fair to anybody sitting in this audience or watching TV at home on PAC 14 for one developer to get a multi-million-dollar tax break when everybody else's assessments have gone up and they're paying more. Between the assessments on their homes, inflation, having a big impact. Now, I was here for that vote. It was a 4-3 vote. Not all the council members agreed. There was a lot of points brought out. If you read all the minutes, one of the big things that was said during that meeting is we didn't know where we would be in 3 or 4 years. Where would this county's finances be? So we had a legislative meeting, and I'll touch on that during council comments later. We had a legislative meeting that we were warned by our legislators that we could see drastic cuts in the state budget, and they didn't know where that was coming from, whether that was going to come either through our county roads or education, whatever. We had our educators stand up and said there's 700 more students, which is about equal to what a school population is. 200 of those students are second language students. We've got SWAT for the fire departments. We got water and sewer. Can we really afford to give a multi-million-dollar tax credit?
Joe,
And this has
Joe,
nothing
I
to do
have
with Mr. Simpson. John?
No, I have to explain something, Joe. You cannot do this. We've already passed it. It is in
We've not
legislation,
passed it,
which
John.
means it is in law that we have to approve it if the proper processes are
No, it's
followed. We
not,
can't
John.
change our mind
Excuse
and
me,
say
John.
times have changed, and we cannot afford this as a county. We've already obligated
Mr.
that.
Benson, can you opine on this? Is this something we have to approve tonight or anytime?
I think the real question is, the council does not have the authority to reject this based on whether or not we approve of the fact that it may be 1 million or 10 million. We do not have the authority to do that.
The way I read the law, if someone builds a hotel or a multifamily residential property within the geographical area, and they increase their assessment by more than $10 million, they meet the requirements to get it. There was a section added when this was adopted to add language that said after review by the finance department. That was added to the original bill. My interpretation is that it goes to the finance department for them to determine whether or not the applicant is within the geographic area and the assessment has increased by the $10 million. If those two criteria are met, it then goes to the county council and the county executive. And the county council and the county executive's role is to simply confirm that those requirements have been met. And if those requirements have been met, then the applicant is entitled to the tax exemption. And in this case, he met those requirements. What he did not do is file it within 90 days of when he received the assessment.
Josh.
The sole issue here tonight is what you do, whether there's any waiver that can be given because of that indiscretion.
I guess a follow-up question to that.
Hang on, Shane, Josh wanted.
Oh, sorry, Josh.
I'll just say, two quick points I just want to bring up. First of all, you ever hear the joke about the two economists and the $20 bill? It's two economists are walking down the street, and they turn a corner, and one of them says, "Hey, look, a $20 bill on the ground." And the other economist says to that $20 bill doesn't exist. If it did, somebody would see it and pick it up. And, of course, it's just only slightly funny because economists aren't really that funny. And then, more importantly, is that no one leaves money on the table. I see and hear from our emails that this is not the only business that apparently has missed this deadline.
So I will readily admit, I got asked to look for other developments, and I forgot about the aspect of the area. The other developments are not within the zone.
Right.
So I readily admit I sent information about two other potential, and those two are not eligible because they're not within the zone. I forgot about that part of the law when I was looking.
regardless, I think the one thing, I don't think the Horizon bill should, or the Horizon program should continue, but that's not what this right before us. The truth is, I mean, like it or not, the individuals here invested far more than the 10 million. I'm assuming, I look at the size of that building, it's got to be much more than that. They've done their part. They generally tried, it sounds like they've reached out to try to get things right, including I'm hearing Mr. Simpson say that he brought a copy of what the city program and tried to make sure that the county could move forward with that. Mr. Illuminati mentioned that there's no, what's the word you phrased, the good intent, right? That there's no, the law that we have written is not very clear to say, oh, well, you had the right intent, you tried to do this. It's not very clear. So we have kind of a plain black and white kind of law that's been put forward. And so nonetheless, it is not very clear with regard to when this assessment time starts or when these 90 days. In my view, I mean, that really doesn't matter. The truth is, we set up a program. We as the county, the city of Salisbury asked the county to put this together. We were very thoughtful about this years ago. I don't think these kind of things should go forward again. Nonetheless, we went through it. We set up a program. Businesses walked through it to try to invest. They did their part. In my view, it's kind of black and white in that sense, and that they've done their part. Whether or not there was a coding error or a clerical error, I don't think should stop. I'm assuming this is, I got to look at the numbers here, but I'm assuming this is not a minimal amount of money. So I don't think we should be harming businesses who, we set up a program, we said, hey, go through these steps. Yeah, maybe we didn't do a great job in putting an application together and being very clear and working with the folks. But nonetheless, the county put forth a plan. We set programs, individuals walk through it. Like it or not, they've invested and they probably should get this for that reason. Going forward, that's it.
Mr. Benson, on a resolution it says, whereas pursuant to Code 90-7, after review by the Finance Office, the application shall be submitted for approval by the county executive and the council. What if we don't approve it?
He doesn't get it.
So what happens? I mean, it says right there for approval. We have, as legislators, we have the right to approve or disapprove. That's what we do here.
Mr. Holloway, you asked me my opinion, and my opinion is that when you adopted this law, you basically set up a criteria.
Correct.
And the criteria is it's built within a certain zone, it's a certain type of building, and it exceeds $10 million. He met all three of those criteria. If he had filed this within 90 days, I don't think the county has the legal authority to refuse to give the credit, the exemption.
Do you think we had the legal authority not to at this point in time?
The question now is whether or not the failure to meet the 90-day requirement is something that can be waived. That's the sole issue. If you find it can't be waived, then he doesn't get it. If you think that there's a good faith reason or a mistake was made and that he should not be punished for that mistake because he made a good faith error, then the county theoretically could waive, in my opinion, the error.
I think
You can't make it effective as of July 1st, 2024, because that's going to prejudice the county's budget for this year. It couldn't start till July 1st, 2025.
I don't see it having an issue on the budget. And as the fact that this bill has not yet been paid, a reissued bill could be, a bill could be reissued with the credit on it.
Well, I'm not a finance director. I don't pretend to be one. I don't play one on TV. My assumption was, and maybe I'm incorrect, that when you provided the county with a proposed budget, it had an income proponent in it, and that income proponent would have included a full tax payment on the Ross Star building. And if that's correct, then this year, if you took it out now, it would reduce the revenue to the county this year, which would in effect you'd have to find a tax to cut it somewhere.
Well,
It would reduce the revenue for this year, yes.
Which is prejudice.
Would we have to find a cut? I don't believe so.
Well, in any event, I believe that's a prejudice to the county, and he didn't make the deadline of July 1st. That's prejudice to the county. He can't receive the tax credit for this year, in my opinion. But I don't get to vote. You all get to vote.
Yep.
Well, Mr. Benson said he's not a finance person. I'm not an attorney either, but when I read this, it says be submitted for approval, and we have that right as a council to approve or disapprove. I feel that's why this council's elected, to make those decisions while we're sitting here. So,
I think sometimes we have to evaluate what we think is fair and where the gray areas might lie. From my perspective, Mr. Simpson certainly felt and had every intention, he wouldn't have gone through this much trouble if he didn't have the intention to take advantage of this program. I think where the confusion really lied, and I think in all honesty, where the confusion rests is the fact that when Mr. Simpson received his bill with the credit, he thought, this is the credit. This is what I have. I've used the analogy before. It's like if you buy a lawnmower and the guy hands you a rebate certificate to fill out for $500, and a week later you get it $500 from the manufacturing company, you think, oh, well, I got it. So I don't have to fill it out because I just received it. And I think that's pretty much the same premise we're talking about with Mr. Simpson. He received it and said, oh, well, this is good. This is the horizon. I'm glad to see the county's working, and we've got everything we need. So that is what I'm saying is probably the relevance to where the issue came as far as filling out the application in a timely manner, where he thought it had already been done. It had already been approved. Any other questions, Janie?
Yeah, may I say something? I'm torn between this decision, the pros and cons. But after we vote on this and we vote for it, what do we as council members tell our constituents that put us in office? They get double taxed in the city and county. The city raised taxes. They're not getting tax credits on their bill. They're getting increased water and sewer. So I'm torn between that. I understand perfectly what happened to you, but you're getting market value for your rent. There's nothing affordable, which I advocate for, affordable housing for that building. That concerns me. I voted on a housing project, River's Edge. But one thing, they got the tax credit because they had apartments open for people with disabilities. So that's why I approved when I was on the city council, that particular housing project. So that concerns me, that people who have money get tax breaks, and then people, average John Doe, don't get tax breaks. And I think that's the problem I have in my head, that when you build these big buildings and things, also the quaintness of our downtown is gone. And I'm just, like I said, I'm torn between this. I've spoken to several, council members, the pros and cons. And in my, and I believe in being honest to all people, I just don't think I can say yea or nay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to abstain from voting.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor of Resolution 126, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Could we do a roll call, please? Start with Joe.
No.
Josh?
Yay.
No.
Shaney? Abstain?
Or Shaney?
Shane?
No.
Jeff?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. The resolution does not pass. It is a 3-3 vote. The resolution does not pass. Resolution 126, 2024 does not pass. All right, thank you very much. Mrs. Hurley?
Okay, next for your consideration is Resolution Number 134-2024. This is declaring 122 South Division Street, Salisbury, Maryland as surplus property and authorizing the exchange of the property with the State of Maryland University System for 909 South Shoemaker Drive, Salisbury, Maryland. Council did hold a public hearing on this request on September the 17th.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 134, 2024. Second.
Second.
Discussion.
President, members of council, thank you. We're here today to move forward another crucial step in this project that was outlined in the letter of intent that accompanied the lease that we entered into with the agreement with Salisbury University. That letter of intent included a timeline and a mechanism by which the properties, the Shoemaker Pond facility and also the downtown library facility, both could be basically swapped so that the county would become full owner of the Shoemaker Pond facility and that the Maryland State University system would own the property at 122 Division in downtown Salisbury. Both parties, both the university and the county, indicated in the agreement the timeline by which the properties would, there would be a due process, and then both properties would need to be declared as surplus. That's taken place on the university side for the Shoemaker Pond facility already, and we're on a solid timeline to complete that per the terms of that letter of intent. And that's why we're here tonight, to vote on the resolution that would surplus the property in downtown Salisbury.
Any questions from anyone?
I would just like to just remind the public that we are going to own the Ward Museum location. At the end of when it's all said and done, we are going to have an even swap, right?
That's right. We have the option that's laid out in the timeline for when we can do that.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
I would just like to make one last comment. I would like to say that I really do appreciate Mr. Seth over here. I think he's really doing a wonderful job, and he's got a really big heart for the library, and I think we're blessed to have him on the team.
Ditto.
Agreed. Anybody else? All those in favor of Resolution 134, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
The next item for business is Resolution Number 135-2024. This is to eliminate the Wicomico County Economic Impact Scholarship Program, and council did hold a work session on this request on August the 20th.
Entertain a motion from council to approve Resolution 135, 2024.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Resolution 135, 2024 passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, next is a submission of an appointment to the Wicomico Behavioral Health Council by Mr. Bunky Luffman, Director of Administration.
Hi, good evening. Also have Matthew McConaughey, our health officer, here for any questions on the appointment for Alexis Laws for the Behavioral Health Council.
Okay. But you're, in other words, just so the council understands, you're formally submitting the name, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, before you is Resolution Number 136-2024. This is confirming the appointment of Alexis Rochelle Laws, MS, BCBA, LBA, as a member of the Wicomico Behavioral Health Council.
Get a motion from council to approve Resolution 136, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Resolution passes unanimously.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
Next for your consideration is Resolution Number 137-2024. This is amending the fiscal year 2025 position control document for the adjustment to the Department of Public Works road salary, Exhibit E in the budget. And you have Mr. Michael Swavey here, Deputy Director of Public Works.
Any motion from council to approve Resolution 137, 2024?
Moved.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Swave, how are you?
Hi, Mr. President. Good evening, all.
Good evening.
You could just give us a quick overview as far as the reason for the amendment, please?
Absolutely. We had it from my perspective, a certainly unforeseen resignation of a vital position at the roads department, second in charge. And we undertook a search, advertised the position. We had 2 recipients, both internal. Not long after we received the 2 recipients, one withdrew because they got a bigger understanding of what the job was about and decided apparently that he wasn't up to the task. So we ended up with 1 applicant. And in order to recognize the skills that that applicant brings to the table, longstanding experience at the very specifics of the job he's going to undertake now as second in charge, we are opting to, within the budget of our total salary, increase the amount we're paying him within the pay grade band.
And as council's aware, this, when there's a position filled in the budget, at the point in time we create the budget, that is the dollar amount available. If that person resigns and we want to replace it with someone different, and a different dollar amount, we come to council to ask for an amendment.
Any questions?
I have a question. The gentleman, is he getting a promotion?
The job he's in currently is a different pay grade than the job he's being selected for.
Is it an upgrade?
It is.
Because I know the last time, previously, we had a gentleman from the Parks and Recs that received a promotion, and we had the person there.
How long has this gentleman been employed?
I think it's something like 3 or 3.5 years.
Was he in this position when we did the budget?
No, that's
No.
the
The-
reason why we're asking for the change. Because
I
there,
stepped in.
yeah, I'm
I
sorry.
had to step.
So the position was filled
Uh-huh.
when, by a different person.
Uh-huh.
That person resigned. The search that has been done found another qualified internal
Mm-hmm.
candidate, but based on experience, and we're requesting that additional salary be allowed to be allocated to this position.
Was the person that resigned offered this amount of money, pay increase before they resigned? Would they have still been here if they'd been offered this pay increase?
I can't answer that question because council decided all the salaries during the budget process.
So it's possible the person that, because we know we've had a turnover, we can argue about why we have. That's a big, different discussion, but, if this person had been offered this $8,000 increase before they resigned, they might have stayed, so. Anyway.
Comments and questions?
You probably don't know that answer either, I guess.
I'd be speculating.
Okay.
That's true. I would be speculating.
All those in favor of Resolution 137, 2024, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Chair votes aye. We have 4-1. Resolution 137, 2024 passes.
Can we do that by roll call? Just-
I thought it was 5-2.
We'll do it. Roll call.
No.
Joe? No. Josh?
Yes.
James?
Yeah.
Shaney?
Yes.
Shane?
No.
Jeff?
No.
Chair votes yes, 4-3.
Okay.
Thank you. Resolution, sorry,
Seven.
got to go back. 137, 2024 passes 4-3.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Excuse me?
Jeff said no.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. At this time, we open the floor for public comments. If you have any comments you'd like to make, please state your name, your county residence, and your concerns. Come to the podium, please. Keep in mind, we have a 3-minute time limit.
30-minute time limit?
Sorry, John, 2. I misspoke.
Good evening. My name's John Palmer. Live in Delmar, Maryland. And that last part of that one session completely blew my mind. I immediately went back to 2006, and it reminded me of some meetings and some events that caused the form of government that we have right now. And I said, whoa, what is going on here? So I was glad for the outcome of that because these $1 million tax cuts going to these big businesses and all property owners is really tough on education. And I'm not speaking for the entire education department. I'm speaking for John Palmer, just one member of the Board of Education tonight. And I've been giving the county council some information on our budgets. And I have one additional one tonight that I'd like to show the relevance to. Mr. Cannon, I liked when you used that word relevance to, because when you give these tax breaks to big companies and all, big businesses, it takes away from the other taxpayers, which Mr. Holloway mentioned. And this chart I have tonight, I want you to look at it. And what it'll show you is the change in portion of county budget allocated to departments between 2010 and 2023. And I have some of these to pass out. And I do have some for the public, if they would like to. Bob, could you pass some of these down? Yeah. The area that I'm concerned with is that when you look at this chart and you look at the red mark in the middle of the bottom of the page, that's where we've gone in with our allocations. And you'll notice in the chart up here that we've had some departments go up 1,000%. Some of them go up 80, 90%. The Board of Education, during that same time, we've gone down to a negative 1.23. Now, if there was some way to work these rewards to these contractors and builders where that portion of that money could go directly to the education funding, I would be all for that. And I think there's a way that somehow this could be worked out, and I would like you to consider that. And that's all I had. Like I say, it's completely different than what I was going to say, but I'm glad it happened that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Any other public comments?
My name is Jacob Booth, Delmore, Maryland. I want to start by saying, first off, thank you to the elected body who came out to Heritage Day in Delmore. It was nice to see that. It was a nice, it was a great victory for the Maryland side in the tug of war competition, which was always good beating Delaware. But what I came here to do is actually bring some good positive things. I'm a 22-year veteran of the railroad and spent most of my career as a locomotive engineer. With that, I see a lot of things at railroad crossings. Cedar Lane in Fruitland has been one of my biggest concerns. I have personally been in 2 accidents there personally. That does not count for close calls, which that would go on for days. Numerous other accidents by fellow employees as well. With that being said, at the Heritage Day, I had an opportunity to talk to Councilman Hastings, brought this concern. And later on that night, I wrote some emails to the county executive's office, to Councilman Hastings, and to Delegate Beecham. And at that time, everybody jumped in full force. And then it was brought to my attention that Councilman Baker, that was actually his district, he got on board with us, jumped right in, got a letter written in support of upgrading that crossing from just lights to gates, which should help a lot with that. Also put me in contact with the State Highway Administration. Yesterday, myself and Delegate Beecham had about an hour meeting with Mark Crumpton, who is the District 1 engineer. Fantastic meeting, also jumped right in. It's just everybody coming in as a team and getting this project started, because I will tell you this, getting these gates could possibly save somebody's life, 100%. Also want to thank the town manager of Fruitland as well. He stepped up, got letters written as well. I do believe the county executive is writing a letter. It's not been sent yet, but I do believe this body has done that in support. So I personally would like to thank each and every one of you for supporting in that endeavor. Last thing is the goal for me moving forward is to increase awareness of this. Years ago, when I worked for Norfolk Southern, we had a program called Operation Lifesaver, where we went into the schools and were able to teach young drivers. And then we also did what are called safety blitzes, where we went and actually went to crossings and handing out pamphlets, got the awareness out. I'm hoping to bring that back in the very near future with the Delmarva Central Railroad. So thank you for your time, and thank each and every one of you. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, the council may know this, but the public may not. Mr. Booth said he was from Delmar, but Mr. Booth's actually a commissioner in Delmar.
Thank you, Mr. Benson. Any other public comments?
Good evening, council members. Wicomico County resident, Captain Joe Lappin. I want to thank you guys tonight for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Wicomico County Watermen and the West Side Community Task Force. And I want to thank Mr. Wynn for bringing up the proposed seafood ordinance that you guys are taking into consideration tonight in the open work session. The ordinance to authorize harvesting seafood and engage in the seafood industry in Wicomico County, passing this legislation would help preserve the endangered group of dedicated men and women who we've actually had some of them show up tonight. And for generations who have supported their families, built the vibrant waterfront communities throughout the Chesapeake Bay and its tributaries. And the ordinance is akin to Maryland's farmer's right to work, which I just shared an email with you that the Farm Bureau, President Gino Lowe in the Wicomico County Farm Bureau is actually supporting this as well, and is recognizing the unique challenges and daily realities faced by our watermen. The legislation is vital to ensuring the livelihoods and are protected and recognized as the legitimate business and entities and stakeholders in our community. The primary purpose of this ordinance is to mitigate the loss of our county's commercial seafood and fishing industry, and it establishes clear guidelines that limit these operations that may be deemed a nuisance or a trespass that safeguard our watermen from undue interference. Furthermore, this ordinance protects the reasonable practices associated in the preparation of the commercial seafood, covering all aspects from handling, harvesting, to buying, selling, unloading, transporting, processing, and these provisions are essential for maintaining the viability of our seafood industry. Notably, Somerset County has adopted a similar legislation, and given that Wicomico County is a home rule county that shares the Wicomico River with Somerset, I'm going to urge and ask that you guys adopt the same legislation. Our shared interest in this vital tributary call for a unified approach to protect our watermen. And thank you in allowing us to present this important legislation. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Levin.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Bill Anderson, resident of District 3, former Assistant Secretary, United States Air Force, and former Assistant Secretary of Maryland DNR. So on a side note, the previous comments, I'm 100% in support of those comments. But I'm here today, this evening, to discuss a fool's errand dubbed Question A, and I have 3 points. Point first, members of this council have stated that removing the executive branch will improve checks and balances. Facts show just the opposite. The Federalist Papers 51, authored by James Madison and incorporated into Articles 1 through 3 of the U.S. Constitution, addresses proper checks and balances between branches of government. The future president unequivocally stated, and the framers agreed, that it takes 3 branches of government to create proper checks and balances. The federal government has 3 branches. All 50 states have 3 branches. Most large counties operate with 3 branches. Yet this council believes it knows better than the founders, so perhaps the goal here is control rather than governance. Point second, it has been declared that an affirmative vote on question A will decrease the cost of county government. Well, unless the council members are planning to quit their day jobs and run this county, an administrator will have to be hired. That person will likely serve at the pleasure of the council. Checks and balances, really? That administrator will require a staff, likely replacing the county executive staff 1 for 1. So the only place to reduce costs is in the replacement of the county executive with an administrator. You all know the salary of our county executive. So let's do some benchmarking. Say Worcester County, half the population of Wicomico, and pays their county administrator 80% more than our county executive. Compare other counties in the state. Same answer. And anyone watching local news is aware Rehoboth Beach has dramatically raised the bar for local government administrators, agreeing to pay $400,000 a year in total compensation for their new administrator. Does anybody really think that question A will reduce taxpayer costs? In the words of the band Aerosmith, dream on. Point third, 22 months ago we were celebrating the election of the county's first female county executive, and we got a determined leader, whether you agree with her positions or not. Now the council is attempting to eliminate a branch of government led by a woman. Coincidence? Perhaps. Something deeper? That's for the voters to decide. So the voters of Wicomico County have only one clear path. First, to soundly defeat question A in November. Second, when this council is up for re-election, the voters need a primary, every member of this council who supported question A, with a strong candidate who actually believes in the wisdom embodied in the Constitution of the United States. Have a great night.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Mike Goldberg, Delmar. I completely reject the last gentleman's premise here. First of all, this is a small county. We have a county executive who has consistently abused power. We have an imperial executive. This has been an increasing problem at the federal level with an imperial presidency. She holds all of the cards. The county council has very little ability to stop the county executive from abusing power. There's the old adage about, why does a dog lick its nether parts? Because it can. And that's exactly why the county executive is abusing power, because she can. The whole concept of the fact that she is a woman is why many of us oppose the office of the county executive is absolutely absurd. It has nothing to do with her gender, has nothing to do with her color or with her religion or anything else. It has everything to do with her actions that have not been a great benefit to this county. We've seen the abuses of power. Those of you who know me know how it's been used against me personally. It's been used against members of the council. The reign of terror has got to stop. The balance, the balance of power lies in the council. We have 7 council members here who come from very diverse districts. Ms. Shaney Shields' district, their interests and aspirations are going to be very different from Councilman Holloway's interests. And this is where the balance of power lies. Y'all are the check and balance unto yourself. And now we have to be united into stopping the abuses of power that are regularly and consistently committed by our county executive. Going back to, once we adopted the county executive form of government, this was in fact regressive. There are only 16% of counties across the entire United States that have an executive. It can actually take more than half of those away, because my home state of Texas, 254 counties, that's actually counted amongst them. But you don't really have a county executive. You have a county judge who acts much like President Cannon does. They are they conduct the meetings, but they only have one vote, just like every other member of this council does. There's no oversight. The council has almost no oversight over the actions of the county executive, so she gets to act unchecked. There is a natural balance of power because of the diverse interests here. Let's go back to what the rest of the country is doing, instead of going back to the days where we had a spoil system, where a county executive or a strong mayor could stack the government with cronies to do their bidding. It's exactly what we have in Wicomico County. So my time is up, according to Mr. Cannon and the big screen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. If I could ask for quiet, please, while we're in public session. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Hubner, Wicomico County. I'm following Mike's comments. Before I start, I've written a poem, so apologies to poets everywhere. I've written this poem about 1,000 times, but I got to keep this short because of time. Situations change, issues arise. This may not always make sense, but at least it rhymes. When Julie ran for office, I asked her to step down. You're just not qualified, I wrote with a frown. Now, lots of things have happened, which I won't list here, except for one, which I hold dear. We can walk in our county parks with a gun. That sure isn't my idea of fun. They will be concealed, of course, to put us at ease. There must be someone she's trying to please. If we can't solve our differences without a gun, where have we gone? What have we done? This county cannot afford her reckless behavior any longer. We need to get back to being united and stronger. Thank you to Mr. Benson, council, and staff, and for all the time you spend trying to put a stop to this nonsense, which has to end. There's a referendum that's now on the ballot this November. It's confusing, but we have to remember, even though some of my friends say vote yes and some of my friends say vote no, we have to do what's best for Wicomico. It's a sad state of affairs when it comes to this. There's so much at stake, so much amiss. County employees are scared and worried and sad. Citizens and council sure aren't glad that Julie is in. She's got to go to save our beautiful county of Wicomico.
Thank you, Ms. Huber.
My name is Mary Jane Swafford. I'm from Wicomico County, and I didn't intend to talk tonight. But I agree with the last two people. But I will say one thing. The thing we're missing is that the students need a change. I have an article today cut out by my husband, not quite cut out, but folded over for me to read, talking about, I'll read the headline and you'll get the idea. State school board is failing students by not failing them. We've taken the student out of this equation. We need to focus on them. We heard the first gentleman say $400 and some thousand more. What are our students worth? Aren't they worth more? Shouldn't we invest in the students? Shouldn't we think about them first? Our students have an appalling record when they graduate from high school. I took this from USA Today. It's on the website. Wicomico County High School are only proficient in 20% proficient in math when they graduate. Reading, 35%. Science, 18%. I asked the question, why is geography not taught? School funding was the answer. We have got to think about our students. We need a change. I'm proposing to vote yes for the referendum.
Thank you, Ms. Swafford.
Good evening. My name is Carolyn Wolgemuth. I'm a resident of Wicomico County and the city of Salisbury. I think this is the first time I've been before this council, but I did write to you prior to the resolution that you voted on earlier this evening. And I want to congratulate you on your vote this evening to reject the resolution by the developer Nick Simpson for a County Horizon tax credit for the Ross. As elected stewards for Wicomico County citizens, you should work for the benefit of your citizenry, not the developers. You had an opportunity and an obligation to do that this evening, and you rose to the occasion. Thank you very much. I also noted on the agenda, work session, item number 3, reevaluation of the Horizon program. I strongly urge you to eliminate this program ASAP, as I have also strongly urged Salisbury to eliminate their Horizon program. Wicomico County and Salisbury taxpayers alike are unduly burdened by Horizon tax credit programs to greedy developers. Whatever happened to living within your means? I do that. Other taxpayers do that. Why shouldn't the developers? If you can't afford to build something without a rebate, then just don't build it. Why should hardworking individuals who pay their own real estate taxes take on the added burden of paying developers' real estate taxes? I retired here. I, like many other retirees, anticipated real estate taxes in my retirement financial calculations. What I did not anticipate was subsidizing these greedy developers. Council members, you were elected to represent tax-paying citizens like me, not those greedy developers looking for a sweet handout. You have an opportunity and an obligation to do away with the Horizon tax program for good. Unfortunately, every tax dollar that is spent given to a developer takes money away from other things like building of roads, financing our police and fire department, other infrastructure projects. You're really taking away from Wicomico County citizens, and you're giving it to the developer. It needs to stop right now, and it needs to stop in Salisbury as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is Monica Brooks. I'm a resident of Wicomico County. I'm also president of Wicomico County NAACP. We were in support of that no vote to the Horizon program, so we're very happy to hear that. But I did want to also follow up with, as I've said many times before, we talked about education. I've made comments before about this relevance of boots on the ground, what's happening to your everyday people. You got to see those numbers on that chart, but our focus so much on growth, our focus so much on development, our focus on so much bringing people here. But if we're going to do all of that, who's going to want to send their kids to the schools that we have that are highly underfunded? If I was moving here and I found out about these statistics, I wouldn't want my kid to be in that school. I wouldn't want them to be there. But we have a great opportunity to really fund our schools. We can't just say, we're going to give money to developers, we're going to give money to this and that, whatever, and we're not going to give to our kids. Our kids, who we hope someday will be the ones to be able to be council members someday, to be the mayor, to be teachers, to be those. But if we're at these percentages, which actually, if you go through the entire state of Maryland, it's looking pretty ridiculous. But the numbers are, I believe, at 45% for reading on grade level, and that overall, it's 27% through the state for math. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. So we need to show our kids, and not only that, for mental health services. If you talk to Dr. Soffer, he has a very clear plan on just ways that if we can just give the right amount of funding to the right things, then we can actually show that we care about the least of these. We care about the young ones. We care about our future and what it's going to look like. We don't want to have teachers not wanting to be teachers because the classrooms are way too crowded. They don't have the resources and assistance that they need. It's a hot mess. So we're really pushing for funding for the schools. It's not budget time, but when you get to that time, please be considerate of that and not just think about ways that we can fund developments, funds that, hotels and things like that. That's all well and good. But if we're not going to take that extra money that we get for these things and still not put them into the schools, I don't know why you guys are even here. I'm just going to be honest, because it's a continual conversation that nobody's listening. We're not getting there. So there's a huge shift that needs to happen, and I look forward to it. I know you guys can do it. I believe in you. Please, don't have me singing, I believe the children are our future.
Hey, can you finish that?
Some of these acts I can't follow. I came here to talk about the Ross, but the gentleman who mentioned the Federalist Papers reminded me of a day in law school when they taught you, if you have the facts, argue the facts. If you don't have the facts, argue the law. If you don't have either, then quote the Federalist Papers. Now, the Federalist Papers were to discuss the potential federal government, not a local county government like we have. And the gentleman also made some reference to certain counties that have a three-branch government, legislative, executive, and judiciary. None of the counties in Maryland have that. I don't know what he was referring to. I'm not an expert on all the counties. There are over 3,000, but my guess would be less than half of them have judicial branches. They probably, like Maryland, are state-run, the judiciary. Now, getting back to the Ross, a couple of things. I do disagree with Mr. Benson. I didn't have this in law school, but I think when a statute says that it's submitted for approval by the county executive and the county council by resolution, meaning you have to pass a resolution, that means you can pass it or not pass it. And I would point out that that was added back in 2021, and I'll read from the minutes at that time. Mr. Cannon said he believes in a prior work session it was discussed about the fact that the viability of the individual projects as a whole would be decided upon by the council itself instead of the finance department. He said he believes Mr. Wilbur agreed to come up with some verbiage based on what the council requested. Mr. Wilbur spoke next, and he said his suggested language would be, and it's that language that's now we've been discussing tonight about approval by the county council. So I don't think there's any question on that. Now, I don't think you're done with the Ross. I think they're going to be back. I mean, hogs at the trough, it's a phenomenon. And I would point out to you that in the application that Mr. Simpson signed and filed, it's in the briefing book, what date was the new assessment completed by the State Department of Assessments and Taxation and notification received of the new value? And the answer is 7/1/23, July 1/23. Before they send out a tax bill, when you develop property, you get a reassessment notice. Mr. Benson talked about how you have some time to come in and challenge that. So they actually were on notice of the new assessment in middle of 23. So they're well over a year out, and that 90 days ran sometime in 2023. So you did the right thing, but you haven't heard the last of them. I can almost bet the farm on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any other public comments? There we go.
Lynn Bratton, resident of Salisbury and Wicomico County for many a decade now. I like to sometimes try to tidy up the ending and hold off on statements until the end. And I would like to admonish everyone here that admonish may not be the right word, but encourage, I suppose is the right word, it's a little late, that as you discuss the fate of the Horizon program in the next part of your business, that you give great thought to eliminating it. As a businesswoman for over 40 years, and yes, I was a school teacher too, but I also was a businesswoman buying real estate in the city of Salisbury, one property at a time, often going to my life insurance policies and borrowing against them to get my initial down payments. I never once asked for, nor was I offered, a dime of public assistance. Not a waiver, not a tax, not even an atta-girl for taking properties off of derelict lists in the city and providing safe, economical, and affordable homes for over 45 families, often multiples, but in 45 different locations. I'm very proud of that, and I'm also very proud that many of my properties have now been sold to homeowners who are now residing in them and producing tax revenues to both the city and the county based on an increase in value over what they were when I bought them at auction or in foreclosure or at tax sales, etc. So I'm saying to you, if a project is worthy, you bootstrap it, you come up with the money, you work extra jobs. I demonstrated microwave ovens, for heaven's sakes, when I had babies at home, in the evenings and on weekends at $10 an hour. Maybe even that much, I don't remember, but the little bit of food that was left over was lunch for the next day if they didn't eat all the sandwich that I fixed. But what I guess I'm just saying is there are ways to develop, there are ways to finance, there are ways to get the results we're looking for, and it doesn't have to come from the hands of other taxpayers. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I'll be brief. I wasn't planning on saying anything tonight. This is the first meeting I've observed. I just want to make one comment. I'm very much
State your
in
name,
favor.
I'm sorry. Your name, please?
Roy Swafford.
Thank you.
Mary Jane's husband. Sorry. I'm in favor of the way the vote came out tonight with this particular project. I just want to say that there may be other projects that are worthwhile to give some tax breaks. If somebody wants to come and build a factory here and employ 5,000 people with good-paying blue-collar jobs, that's not the same as somebody that wants to open a restaurant or an amusement park. They're not essential, but so in the future there may be other projects where the vote could wind up quite different. And I think that's right for the county, right for the people to have more jobs come here. Our industrial park still has room to employ more people. Good for the tax base and good for the merchants here and everyone. So it's just something to keep in mind for down the road. We may find a company we want to give tax breaks to, whether they're rich or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swafford. Any other public comments? Shane wants you to finish where you left off.
Yeah. Oh, I was going to
That's
take
what
his
you're
last
doing,
bit. I was going to finish your time. I yield my time. The other thing I didn't get to say, because I'm going to have to leave, is I saw in the open work session you have the new director of Rural Strategic Economics, Anderton. Please, please inquire and ask questions and see what the plan is for this position of strategic economic rural development. Because I asked him what his plan was, and he didn't have one. So I'm just saying, since he's going to be introducing himself, hopefully today he will introduce a plan. So that was like a month or so ago. So maybe there's a plan now. So since you are counsel, please counsel with him. Thank you.
Ms. Brooks. Any other public comments? Seeing none, that concludes public comments. Council comments. James?
Yeah, I might as well go first. Everyone else goes first all the time. It's just going to be a few minutes. I just have a couple quotes I want to read. I don't know if anyone, Mr. Bob Taylor probably knows, Charles de Montesquieu. He was one of the inspirers of the Constitution, and he wrote us a quote. Combining legislative and executive power is the road to tyranny. When the legislative and executive powers are united in the same person or in the same body or magistrates, there can be no liberty, because apprehensions may arise lest the same monarch or senate should enact tyrannical laws to execute them in a tyrannical manner. Now, I was going to read a bunch of this Federalist Papers, but honestly, I prop up our Federalist Papers because I stand for our Constitution, and I appreciate what the Founding Fathers wrote, James Madison and Hamilton. But Federalist Papers 51, I'm going to read some of it, and I think I should. It is equally evident that the members of each department should be as little dependent as possible on those of the others for the emoluments annexed to their offices, where the executive magistrate or the judge is not independent of the legislator. In this particular, their independence in every other would be merely nominal, but the great security against a gradual concentration of several powers in the same department consists in giving to those who administer each department the necessary constitutional means and personal motives to resist encroachments of the others. The provisions of the defense must in this, as in all other cases, be made commensurate to the danger of attack. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The interest of the man must be or woman must be connected with the constitutional rights of the place. It may be a reflection of human nature that such devices be necessary to control the abuses of government. But what is government itself but the greatest of all reflections of human nature? If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were governed by men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this: you must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place oblige it to control itself. A dependence on the people is, no doubt, the primary control on the government, but experience has taught mankind the necessity of auxiliary precautions. This policy, supplying by opposite and rival interests the defect and of better motives, might be traced through the whole system of human affairs, private as well as public. Well, we see it particularly displayed in all subordinate distributions of power, where the constant aim is to divide and arrange the several offices in such a manner as that each may be a check on the other. The private interests of each individual may be a sentinel over the public rights. These intentions of prudence cannot be less requisite in the distribution of the supreme powers of the state. But it is not possible to give each department an equal power of self-defense. In republic government, the legislative authority necessarily predominates. The remedy of this inconveniency is to divide the legislator into different branches. Imagine that. We've got to cut our legislation in two different branches, and to render them by different modes of election and different principle of action, as little connected with each other as the nature of the common functions and their common dependence on the society will admit. It may it may be necessary to guard against dangerous encroachments by still further precautions, as the weight of the legislative authority requires that it should be thus divided. The weakness of the executive may require, on the other hand, that it should be fortified, and absolute negative on the legislator appears at first view to be natural defense with which the executive magistrate should be armed, but perhaps it would be neither altogether safe nor alone sufficient on ordinary occasions. It might not be exerted with requisite firmness on an extraordinary occasions. It might be perfidously abused. May not this defect of an absolute negative be supplied by some qualified connection between this weaker department and the weaker branch of the stronger department, by which the latter may be led to support the constitutional rights of the former without being too much detached from the rights of its own department. If the principles on which these observations are founded be just, as I persuade myself they are, and they may be applied a criterion to the several state constitutions and the federal constitution, it will be found that if the latter does not perfectly correspond with them, the former are indefinitely less able to bear such a test. Now, I have just a few more things that I would like to mention, and then I would be done, because I know this is a lot. What I would like to say, okay, so we have an inspiration, and where did this come from? Where did the three branches of government come from? Why do we have this form of government? And I believe it came from our book, Isaiah 33. And if everyone reads that chapter, it is about the age of grace and after the return of the king. And if you read it, on section 22, it talks about how the Lord's going to govern the earth. And he is going to be our judge. He is going to be our lawgiver. And he is going to be our king. And it says he will save us. And that is the way that he intends to govern our people. I would like to say that our founders got it right. Maybe we should re-look at the Federalist Papers and readjust how we do our executive branch. And I don't really respect the commentary on the side note. Thank you.
Sorry, James. Josh.
I'll be brief.
Thank you.
Just to say, with all this conversation, by the way, about understanding government and understanding things like subsidies for businesses or others, if you want to read a classic book from the 80s, conversations from the 80s and 90s that were put together, but the book Understanding Power by Noam Chomsky, read that, and that'll actually answer a whole lot of these questions. Side note. But either way, the one thing I did want to say is, first of all, I think we need to have more poetry at our council meeting.
I like that.
Thank you, Ms. Huebner, for that. That was good. The only other thing I just want to say was just to say thank you for Commissioner Booth. I did want to appreciate all of your hard work, not just, of course, for Del Mar, but for safety there and for Fruitland and others. You really pushed that forward. I'm glad that you were able to bring it up and we were able to help move that forward. That's how government's supposed to work. So thanks for all your hard work on that, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
Comments. Shane.
So we hear a lot about checks and balances, checks and balances, checks and balances. I'm going to give an example. Now, it's a sore subject. A lot of people's tired of hearing about it, but Safari and the Quarry. The executive was able to change that by one day to keep it out of the council's hands. This is your checks and balances. You saw it tonight. How many times did you see something pass or fail? Did we all get along on every question? No, we didn't. The reason I support question A is for that very reason. I don't like the idea of one person having that much power. You got a body of 7, you got to get 4 votes. 4. I think it shows a lot as far as, if anything dishonest was to go on or backroom deals or whatever, it would be a whole lot harder to do that with 4 people than 1. Now, me saying that, I'm not saying the executive's doing backroom deals. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I could see that office being susceptible to that. Where if you have a body like this, that's your checks and balances. And I just want to make sure people understand that. You know, I've heard it a lot. I heard it tonight. Checks and balances, checks and balances. Well, we don't always agree. We don't. And I think this, you know, how many years, Joe, did we have council of former government?
We had it 139 years.
139 years. Now, I can only speak on the 2 years I've been on this council, but the executive form of government just doesn't seem to work. Talking to Joe, talking to John, guys that have been around for a long time, they said the same thing about other county executives. We got to fix this. We got to fix it. My opinion, vote for question A, get things back on track and keep it moving. That's my opinion.
Jeff?
I want to congratulate my fellow council members on unanimously approving almost $2 million in moving grant funding tonight for the stadium and the airport. That's huge. Speaking of the airport, the groundbreaking of the runway extension, the long-awaited runway extension is next week. We're finally going to stick a shovel in the ground. Literally. Another thing, the intersection of Route 50 and Old Railroad Road by Wrights Market will be getting a traffic light. So we got the official notification last week from MDOT. The original plan was to do a J-turn scenario there, Town Hall and Mardella Fire Department. The public was adamantly opposed to it. We asked them to do another signal analysis, which they did. And the previous signal analysis said that the intersection did not warrant a traffic light. Well, that was done 10 years ago. So we asked them to do a new one. They did. Collaboration with state officials. Now the signal analysis warrants a traffic light. We're getting a traffic light. And props to the MDOT. Don't look for it next week, but it'll be in motion. They have to do the design and engineering and all that good stuff, but at least it's moving. So that's all I got. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
I just want to apologize to James for my comment. I forget my voice carries, but he was quoting the Bible. And I want to say, if people followed the Bible, we would have a perfect world. When you quote things like that. But however, I was like, my vote for the Ross building, I was torn between the vote. I talked to my council members, and one was saying, you know, one thing, one was saying the other. I got calls. So I really believe in affordable housing. That's what I campaign on, affordable housing. And to me, the Ross building is not affordable for people who live here and for the working poor. So my constituents would look at me and say, well, you voted for this rich man. The perception, maybe he's not a millionaire, I don't know. But the perception that if we gave a tax credit, and your tax bills are going up, the ones that live here, that's the perception that we would vote to give that person a tax credit. That's why I abstained from voting. When Monica was talking about, and the other lady was talking about our children and our youth, I look at things at a holistic approach. We need to include the parents. Because we have young parents that don't understand, you just don't send a child to school. You have to be part of their education process for them to be successful. We can teach them in school, but if the parents don't teach their children manners, respect at the home, the teachers are not their parents. So we need to educate the parent on the importance of education. And we need to include the parent. And you have to almost make it mandatory, especially for the young parent, to come into their school system. And I think that's the most important thing. And then we have another problem in this county. The kids that can't speak English, and I'm going to be quiet. A little girl did not get home until 7 o'clock because she couldn't speak English. Because she got off the wrong bus stop. So I was thinking to myself at night, I lay in bed and think about these things, that we have a growing Haitian community. We're short of teachers. So, and I called the board today to bring that suggestion up. I didn't get a return call. So anyway, is to have those Haitian, talk to people in the Haitian community, their community, they have a community, Reverend Toussaint has a community thing, resettlement. Maybe some of those people can be interpreters for those children. If it's not but a volunteer basis, if I was the board, I would reach out to that community and see if they can be teacher's aides or volunteer in the mentoring program to help the children along the way to interpret what they're saying. It's very simple. It wouldn't cost any money if you get volunteers. So I'm going to reach out to Reverend Toussaint. And I think I want to say that the seniors that I advocate for, I don't want to disappoint them because I got a letter from a lady talking about how her rent was and how she had to pay for her medication and choose between all that and utilities and things like that. We have to consider our seniors too. And when I look at downtown and I look at Berlin and compare, and even Cambridge now is moving to a quaint community, what is happening to our plaza? What is happening to our downtown? Do we want to go downtown? Do we have walking traffic to go in downtown? All we're doing is catering to a certain population and leaving the people who have lived here forever, denying them access to downtown. We don't even have a drugstore anymore. You can't even buy a box of tissues, and I preached that for years. So what do we have for families? Unity Park, yes, but to me, I won't say anything like that. But anyway, we don't have anything to offer. When you go down to Berlin, you see walking traffic all the time. We don't offer anything for tourists in the downtown area. You have what you call Third Friday, that kind of stuff. Then we do have the festival, the folk festival stuff. But what do we have for the people that have lived here and pay their taxes? I want to know the answer. What do we have? And I think we should encourage small businesses down there. But how can we encourage small business if nobody can come and nobody has parking? And that's all I have to say.
Any other comments? Jeff?
You spoke yet? You all right? I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight and folks watching TV. We talked earlier about the Horizon, or the Ross building. That vote was done 3 years ago. It was a 4-3 vote. I didn't vote for it then. So it was an easy vote for me tonight not to support that. For the past couple meetings, I have mentioned some things, some issues we've had with the county executive over the past 18 years. And I want to emphasize this isn't about one county executive. It's about the county executive form of government and some of the things that we've experienced. Shane's comments tonight were pretty much right on. We don't get along all the time. We don't agree with things. And John, I did not put that golf ball next to that tree, okay? Okay, even though we didn't agree tonight. But most of the time, for the betterment of Wicomico County, we agree. So I had this list of 30-some items. I'll call them incidents. Some of them's charter violations. Some of them's just things that shouldn't have been done. And for the people, a lot of the people that's saying, no, don't vote for question A, they're not people that's been coming to these meetings and heard and seen some of the things that this council has witnessed over the years. I was involved in county government a lot longer before there was a county executive. I served on different boards and commissions. And I witnessed Wicomico County the Wicomico County Council. No government's perfect. They all make mistakes. All governments, I guess, kind of work. You know, legislative might work, executive form might work. So far, it's not worked for Wicomico County. It's been, whether it's the people, it's the setup, it's the charter, I don't know. But it's not worked. So I'm going to go through the last part of my list of some of the things that I've witnessed. And again, I want to emphasize it's not about one executive in particular. It's about just some of the things that some of this council members did see, and some of them haven't because they haven't been here long enough. Ignoring deadlines seemed to have been a big one. Sometimes that can be costly when you ignore deadlines. Refuse to let department heads meet with the council. And I'm not going to go into the nuts and bolts of each one of these. Anybody's welcome to call me and I'll explain, you know, on the phone, talk to you and personally. Mass exodus of employees due to hostile work environment. Ask a sworn deputy to be assigned as a county executive's chauffeur. Now we'll go a little bit into that. Think what that would cost. Sworn deputy, you know, what's the starting salary of a deputy now? $65,000, $70,000, something like that. Think about that. Is our county executive form of government due a sworn deputy to be a chauffeur? I've got the text from the sheriff where that request was made. So, wanted to hire an employee to oversee the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. We already have an elected sheriff. Wanted that person to oversee the state police, Salisbury Police Department, and other allied departments in the county. I don't think either one of those departments wanted somebody from Wicomico County telling them what to do. Involving employees in the election process, encouraging county employees to make derogatory statements about citizens, encouraging political allies to make accusations about council members. We couldn't go to the bond market one year because we didn't have an approved finance director. We didn't have an approved finance director because this council didn't approve the one because they weren't qualified. Use county credit cards to purchase family groceries. Oh, I forgot my credit card, so I just use the county's, but I'll make it up. And the one we've heard the most about lately is the encrypted radio. That should have been approved by the sheriff, and it wasn't. So I'll close with that on that subject. The other subject I want to go on to is we had a legislative breakfast a couple of weeks ago. Our delegation was there. I think most all of them were there. What that is the delegation from the state comes in. The county has a list of items that, top of the list, things they want to get done in Annapolis. Invite different departments in. State's attorney was in. School superintendent was in. Sheriff's department was there. I guess you call it the hot list, the things you want the most, the things that should be taken care of. You know, we talked about crime. That's where I came up with that 700 extra students that the school board's getting this year, which is equal to about the population of one school. County executive, the top of the list were alcohol bills. Of all the things that we have problems with, you know, crime, fire departments, water and sewer, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things at the top of local legislation that the county executive, that was, okay, on the second page, under county council, we've got fire department recruitment, increased fines for littering, public safety. That's county council's list. County executive's list is liquor audit, another audit one, local control, giving the county executive's office, or I guess whoever, local control. I can't understand why liquor has to be at the time. I mean, we know we deal with liquor. We've got liquor stores. We've got restaurants that serve liquor. I've drank enough liquor that over the years, I don't anymore, but anyway. But why is that at the top of our list? Why is that the most important thing? It don't make sense to me. I sit there at that meeting and said, I looked at this and I said, is this why we're here? So anyway, that's all I have tonight. Thanks for coming in. And I will be voting for question A. Thank you.
Entertain a motion to adjourn to go into open work session. Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. First item on the open work session is the proposed water and sewer plan amendment.
John, take 5. So that people can get out of here.
Excuse me?
So the folks can get out.
We'll take a recess for just 5 minutes if you don't mind. Thank you.
5.
All right.
This is the Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2024-22 for October 1st, 2024. Next item, the first item we have on the open agenda is, if I can find it, there it is, the proposed water and sewer plan amendment. So glad to have everybody here. Whoever needs to come up, please come up and take a chair, get a mic, and announce yourselves so that the public knows who we have here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Amanda Pollock with the Center for Watershed Protection.
Good evening, Council. It's Adam Corey, Executive Director of Environmental Services for Wicomico County DPW.
Great. We have your information in the brief book. We'll certainly allow you to, we'll give you the floor and let you explain. Thank you.
Thank you. We put together just a brief presentation mainly to keep me on topic, so we will share this with everyone.
Yeah. I'm sorry. We can hear it. They don't realize how much it travels.
So what we're here to talk about today is a water and sewer comprehensive plan map amendment. This is for areas that the health department had identified around the Salisbury area that have potentially failing septic systems, and the map amendment enables us to apply for state funding. So I'm going to come back to the next steps, but I just wanted to show that this is only a map amendment to apply for funding. Once you go through the typical process for a map amendment, we would be eligible to apply for funding. Once we know if the county receives funding, we would start the public outreach period and then look to establish a service area. So I'm going to touch on all that again at the end, but let me talk a little bit about why this is important in the world of state funding. So Maryland has the state revolving fund. Every year, applications are accepted in January. The state receives those applications and ranks them and puts them out for a priority project list in about June of every year, and the earliest funding would be made available would be next October. So projects are ranked based on public health needs and environmental justice areas. And to be eligible to apply for the state revolving fund, there's a couple of things that have to happen. The project has to be consistent with the county comprehensive and water sewer plan, so it can't be labeled as a no planned service area, and it must be in a priority funding area.
Excuse me. Can I ask
Please.
a question? Have we ever formed a sanitary commission?
Not yet.
Isn't that something we should do before any of these other plans come about, or?
Certainly can help answer that question, Mr. Holloway. The Sanitary Commission, Sanitary District, as it will become to be known, has already been gone through, state legislation for us to be able to create that here. One of the first, if you will, low-hanging fruit on the menu of the county is to help these somewhat underprivileged communities that are very limited on space, soil permeability, and groundwater contamination issues that could arise from on-site sewage disposal that are already well within very close grasp of the city of Salisbury sewer. So this map amendment allows us to go forward to ask for funding so we can get those folks hooked up to public water and sewer to abate that public health risk, not necessarily needing a sanitary commissioner district, because the city of Salisbury is going to own all these wastewater lines. They're going to be the custodian of these wastewater lines. So the sanitary district is not necessarily needed at this point, but once we get moving forward, those will be other projects to look into. I hope that answers your question.
I don't agree with it. It answers my question, but, if we're moving toward, water and sewer in Wicomico County, I think one of the first steps we should do is to set up the sanitary commission. So, what you're talking about doing is fine, and we know it's needed, but all this may work into one thing at some point in time. I mean, one connected throughout the county, so.
So in this particular case, and Amanda, you step in here if I, am going off on a tangent a little bit on it, but again, this particular project, that it is unincorporated portions of the county that are not going to need annexation to the city is effectively extending the grace of their service. What we're doing as the Department of Public Works is quarterbacking the project to get them the help they need, including, frankly, the residents to get the help they need to get connection.
So they've agreed, off the subject of the sanitary commission, the city has agreed to do water and sewer hookup.
Yes, not only agreed, they are the applicant for this comprehensive water and sewer plan. Yes, sir.
Okay.
They passed a resolution in October of 2023
Okay.
that would allow that. They no longer need a urban service district or anything like that. And in this particular case, the city is the applicant on the actual written application in your package to ask for the amendment, and we're just quarterbacking it and getting it up to the finish line. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Holloway, before we could create this as a sanitary district, we would need that legislation that you asked about. So that is coming before these areas would be made into sanitary districts, for sure.
And I'm sorry, I don't profess to be an expert on this, but I don't understand that, because the city adopted a resolution, and in that resolution, they adopted or created a Salisbury water and sewer extension policy. And that water and sewer extension policy has an application, which is the one that's in this package. And it's an out-of-town service agreement. But if you read it, there are two options. The area is contiguous to the city, and the owner shall submit a petition for annexation within 30 days. So I assume every single property owner has to submit an application to be annexed. Or the city shall petition for annexation when the property is contiguous to the city limits, so they have to agree to be annexed if and when the city decides they want to annex them. So I don't understand what you're saying, because the form that the city has adopted and their policy says that that's the way they're going to do it. And it also says in their policy that no new urban services district shall be created. So if there's no new urban services district, is the city going to bill these people who are not in the city directly for the services? Because I don't think they can do that. They normally do that through an urban services district. If they're not going to do it through an urban services district, it seems to me the county's got to create a sanitary commission that somehow does that.
Mr. President, I did speak to Mr. Wilbur briefly about this, and he explained that for the purpose of the water and sewer plan amendment, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Illuminati, that for the purpose of the water and sewer plan amendment, that the county council can make that decision, but moving forward with the project, it either has to go through the Urban Services Commission or the Sanitary Commission if it's established.
Yes, and that's really in the next steps. That's step number 4. So here we're just in that typical process to amend the map, and that's what I'll explain in a little bit, and then apply for funding, start the public outreach. So we're a few steps away from creating that service area. So back to the reason we're amending the map is to try to be eligible for state funding. So you have your water and sewer comprehensive plan. Each county is required by state law to have these. Your plan was adopted in 2010. This is very different from the master plan that was adopted a few years ago. This is, it follows state code, and it basically ensures that any development of water or sewer in the county is compliant with county planning. The key thing here on this slide is the map legend. So the state requires you to designate every parcel in some type of a category, whether it's served with water or sewer and it's an S1, or if it's not served, it's an S6, and then there's the scale in between, whether or not it's in planning, it's an immediate priority, or it'll be served in a 3 to 5 or 6 to 10 year period. So you're not eligible to apply for state funding if you're in the no plan service area. So you need to elevate the level of priority by doing a map amendment. So we worked with the health department to identify areas adjacent to Salisbury's sewer system that have public health needs. They identified these 3 areas shown on the map, which are all in no planned service areas. So this is, again, just a map amendment to elevate their priority to a more immediate priority, a 3 instead of a 6. These are maps from your county water and sewer comprehensive plan. So again, it was adopted in 2010, so there's probably some other things that will end up getting updated on this map, and we just highlighted where these areas are. So this is the one area off of Route 50, and then the other 2 areas, just to show that they are currently in S6s, but surrounded by served areas. So again, why this is important is to make these areas compliant with the priority funding areas. And the reason we want to do that is to apply for state funding. If we didn't want the state to help pay for this, then you don't have to worry about priority funding areas. But we're only doing these projects where there's a health need, so we absolutely want to try to maximize all our state funding. So we need to apply for priority funding areas. So these areas are in areas designated as PFA comment areas. And we have Tracy Taylor from Maryland Department of Planning here in case I say anything wrong, but the comment areas, what that means is that the county had identified these areas as a priority funding area, and Maryland Department of Planning said you don't meet all the criteria. So there's a comment on those areas. So they are considered county designated PFAs, but the state doesn't recognize them as PFAs. So there's 3 criteria that allows an area to be in a priority funding area. We worked with the Maryland Department of Planning. They had an intern that did a lot of great work for the county that helped identify what needs to get done in these particular areas to make them eligible to be in a PFA. And the only criteria that they don't meet is that they need to be in an S1 through S5 mapped area in the comp plan, that criteria number 2 up there. So if we adjust the map and show that we are planning to provide service, then they meet the designation for the PFA area. Again, the reason why this is important is the comment areas are not eligible for funding. So once we do the map amendment, if all that gets approved and you have your public hearing and it gets approved, then we would go back to MDP and ask for these areas to be adjusted. And essentially, all that is enabling us to do is apply for funding. That's it. So in summary, this is not a commitment to serve with water and sewer. You have the ability to make this map amendment, change it back in the future if you decide to not pursue this, but this enables you to put an application in to determine the grant eligibility to serve these areas.
I have a question. North Delano and South Delano, how did that get picked?
So it got picked because, and I'm going to jump back to the map real quick. The area just to the south of it already has sewer service. And so the health department looked at septic records in those areas, and they provided a letter with where they've received septic replacement applications, or where they have seen known issues. There may be some holding tanks in the area. So they identified that as an area of need for septic replacement. And because it's adjacent to gravity sewer already, we tried to pick areas that could be a gravity sewer extension to keep the costs down with the initial phase.
What is a gravity sewer?
So, yes.
Yeah, so gravity sewer effectively is when you can flush your pipes at your house and Mother Nature takes it on down that pipe because there's a dip in the pipe going towards a collection system. Non-gravity sewer is when you have to have it pumped. Either you're pumping it from your own property or you're going to a centralized grinder station You know, we have those all over the place, but, you know, we picked areas that are much easier because, as you can imagine, if you can get Mother Nature to flow that water on her own going downhill, you don't have to have the added expense of putting in pump stations and grinders.
So you are going to have a public meeting, because I know everybody lives on those
Definitely.
those
Sure,
two streets.
Yes.
And I know they don't want to be annexed to the city.
So in this particular part, and not to skip ahead too far, but, you know, the city doesn't, the great thing about this particular project is the city doesn't have to annex them in to provide the service.
Only provide the service if the people want it, correct?
So, again, one of the things we want to do is get the map amendment started. That way we can take the good news to the people once we have, you know, you apply for funding, you start getting that process rolling. Then you go talk to the community and say, hey, look, this is something we'd like to do, public health protection, environmental protection, giving them the ability to, right now, for example, let's say you own a small home that may be a little bit on the rundown side, needs rehabilitation, or you have to move in your sick mother-in-law, for example, and you want to build on a small addition to your home to make it easier for you to live as a family. Many of the areas of those communities with limited lot size, poor soil permeability, drinking water supply wells that are so close to each other that we can't issue a sanitary construction permit across the street at the health department that's going to be compliant with all state and local code, they're going to get a turn down on their building permit application. Yeah, so you get it, right, exactly, because you're, with on-site sewage, you're taking up potential space. So it's kind of one of those things where once we're able to say, all right, this area is a priority for the following reasons to the state of Maryland, then they look at that ranking, the scoring process, especially for environmental justice, and they say, yep, this is a top-tier project. You get your funding laid out, then you go talk to the constituents and say, here's the good news, here's how we'd like you to walk down the path.
I'm guessing we're sort of stepping aside from the water and sewer master plan that we've just done. I'm guessing because the priority funding areas were not recognized by the state, and we're shifting gears, and we're picking areas that are adjacent to the city of Salisbury because they are in priority funding areas, and you will get state funding for that, right?
So that's correct.
Right.
There's 3 projects that are moving forward from the master plan. This is the one that could be closest to design, but we need to apply for the funding, and to apply for the funding, we have to correct this. The other 2 projects in the west side of the county and the east side of the county, the council had allocated some budget in the last fiscal year, so those are moving forward with the engineering studies to then look at how to approach those projects. Those are a little bit more complex.
I'm hoping you're going to answer my next question is really going to be, you're applying for state funding. Exactly how is that funding going to be applied towards the homeowners or towards the infrastructure? I'm assuming you're going to be going there in a minute, right?
So it would be going for infrastructure. So we would be applying, in this year's budget, there was some money allocated for potentially design of some of these systems. This would be applying for the rest of design, construction inspection of that infrastructure.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, that was,
There's also the individual owner piece that we can utilize for each individual residential property owner to apply on their own as a supplement to SRF that we're going to work for through the Bay Restoration Fund program for individual connection fees.
I thought we were always going to trend towards trying to have more control over urban service districts and having that be the driving force behind this. But this program here apparently is trying to fast track annexations. And my concern about that as whether or not the public will buy it is because then they'll be exposed to taxation, which a lot of people don't want to do, and it's a carrot and stick type of thing.
yeah, Salisbury's extension policy allows for extensions when there's health need without annexation. Even in the areas that are considered kind of the donut holes, they have the ability to waive annexation where there's a public health need. So
Your contracts in here don't talk about waiving annexation. They talk about the city will decide upon annexation once it's contiguous. It seems like it's almost inevitable that that property will be annexed.
It does say that when the city's willing to provide all city functions, including sidewalks and streetlights, and so that the city knows that they would carry a burden to annex, because where these are in health need areas, the city wouldn't put those burden on those residents. Their policy states that. So that would be a significant city burden for them to take on.
All right. Yes, Josh.
Just clarity, is this water and sewer
So right now, this
Just-
is,
just-
the map amendment is for both,
Okay.
because we wanted to leave our options open. Our preference would be to serve water and sewer. There is one of the 3 areas is already served by city water, so it would be getting sewer. But yes, the map amendment is for both water and sewer.
School
Yeah,
is.
Area 2 and 3, by the way, that is where I get the majority of my constituent calls come from there. It's a lot of folks who they built their homes and they're now really compressed together. I think most people that would walk by would think, oh, that's the city of Salisbury, but it's obviously not. It's in the county. And I've shared the horror stories before where we've had elderly couples one of them who spent had to put in a well, and there was, I haven't checked on them now, I don't need to, but it's now over a year, they may still not be able to drink their own water. And they put in a well thinking, but they didn't know that they could hook into the city of Salisbury. They didn't know that was even an option. They want to be Salisbury taxpayers. They didn't think they could.
And it's a longer process if they go in alone. When you go in an application like this, there is a mobile home park in the county that the city is in the process of serving with water, and in that SRF application, it included all connection fees. So the impact fees to the city and the connection all the way up to the house. So that's what we would be applying for when the time comes.
To have that paid for.
To have that
See,
paid for
that's-
by the state. So there is
good.
precedence
That's really good.
with that mobile home park.
That's really good.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, okay, go ahead. Did you have more to, as a
That is
presentation?
it. That's
Okay.
the stuff.
Jeff, yeah, of course.
As we continue to see the screws tighten at the state level with the funding, do you see any hiccups in this, or do they already have funding set aside for something like this?
So right now, the bipartisan infrastructure law put a lot of money into infrastructure, and I think we're maybe only 2 years into the SRF through that, and there is money for emerging contaminants like drinking water issues, PFAS in wells. So right now, the state has still have a pretty good amount of money allocated for water and sewer projects. It is competitive. It's highly competitive, though, but they do, as Adam said, they look at the environmental justice score in the area, and they look at the health needs. So the weight of what the health department says, it carries a lot of weight.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And it's a dedicated revenue source from the BRF too, the Bay Restoration Fund.
Yeah, that one doesn't, that one's always got money, hate to say always, but.
$60 a
Yeah,
house.
$60 per household, so.
Yeah, so that's, because I've always thought that the very first issue you had to address was the hookup and how that was going to be paid. And I've always said, Amanda, from the very first meeting, that somehow or other the county or the state was going to have to figure out how to address that and pay for that.
Yes.
Because you weren't going to get the homeowners to do it. And
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
when the water bills started coming in, whether or not that had to be gradually escalated in over a few years. Part of this Exhibit B, does say that the city shall let me read. The city shall phase in property taxes over a period of 10 years
If they
from the
decide,
date of
yeah.
annexation.
Yep.
So,
If they decide to annex, and that's when there is a public health need. When-
got you, okay. All right, and do we know at this time, is it a little premature to figure out how they're phasing in the 10 years?
It is, because we haven't actually applied to them for this to be a sanitary district or a service area. The city signed the water and sewer map amendment. So at this point, they've said, yes, we are willing to be the service provider if these areas become a service district. But we're not there yet to discuss that, that question about the service area.
Why do you think the original water and sewer master plan, right, the big one, why didn't that include these neighborhoods? Because, we know about,
Yeah.
Eastern Shore, Old Ocean City Road and all that. Why weren't these in that master?
So there's always been areas in the comprehensive water and sewer plan that were identified as potential failing septic areas. And so the way that master plan was written, it was that areas within a certain radius of municipalities would be served by the municipality. So that's how they were covered. Where the Old Ocean City Road corridor is a little bit further out, it's a bigger project. It would take pumping to get there. So that's why it was addressed separately. But this was kind of lumped into those, you're close to a municipality, you would be served that way. There's really kind of no other choice. You wouldn't have a small treatment plant for these areas that are a stone's throw away from sewer.
Get it? Good plan, Tracy? Yeah. Anybody other questions? Anything else you want to add?
Sir.
What's our time frame?
So this would go through a public hearing process, so I'm not sure when that gets scheduled, but that would be the time frame. So the applications are due in January. So our goal is to have this process, if it gets approved, and then the PFA cleanup done before January so we can make the applications. That's the time.
We talk about low-hanging fruit and getting something done quick. You know, you have a sewer line that runs down the middle of Mount Herman Road all the way to the airport.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any timeline on hooking into that? You know, you don't have water, but you do have sewer. I mean, there's a lot of houses there on small lots, you know, closer to Salisbury, but.
So no timeline, but open to that. And again, I'll just lean on the health department to give us the records. If that's an area that should be the next focus, you know, absolutely open to that.
Yeah. We want to work closely with our partners across the street because,
excuse me,
you know, want to work closely with our partners across the street. I mean, coming from the state, I've only been here about a month and a half, but, you know, that was my job, you know, for Maryland Department of the Environment. And believe me, there's plenty of places within Wicomico County that we could start to look at and you know, start checking off the list. So, but it just takes some time, and this one definitely looked to be the easiest one for sure. And if you ever want to talk about sewage and septic systems, more, it's my second favorite thing to talk about beyond fishing.
We know what's on the right and what's on the left and what runs downhill, right?
Yes, sir.
Excellent, great, excellent work. Thank you very much. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a meeting with the Director of Rural Economic Strategy with the Department of Commerce. That would be former delegate, Mr. Carl Anderson. Hey, sir. I appreciate the fact that your office requested time from the council to sit down with you to figure out what's going on.
Absolutely. So how y'all doing? Everybody all right?
It was great.
All right. Good. All right, my man. There it is. Yeah, so I guess we'll backtrack. Most of you, Carl Anderson was a delegate for the past decade representing Wicomico County in the Maryland General Assembly. Before that, Mayor Delmar. Before that, Town Commissioner in Delmar. And serving my neighbors outside of my wife and my children. It's been the highlight of my life. It's not something I set out to do or planned or went to school for or anything like that. It's just kind of happened, almost like it was divine intervention in a way. But so
Former chair of the Maryland Municipal League.
President of the Maryland Municipal League. Yes, sir. Absolutely. It's been a long journey, me and you there, Mr. President. Long journey together.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
indeed.
you're not kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it was about a year ago, you know, well, actually, as he was a candidate for governor, Governor Westmore had kind of reached out. We met and talked, and he was asking, he said, why is the rural counties, you know, I keep hearing the rural counties feel like they're kind of left out. And I said, well, it's because we feel like we're left out, you know. And so he said, well, you know, that's something that we need to address. And I said, yeah, it's something you need to address. And so, you know, conversations over the past year about, you know, ways that I thought maybe could kind of bridge the gap between the administration and, you know, local governments, county councils, county executives, mayors, city councils, town councils. You know, so I said, you know, maybe having someone that's kind of dedicated to be your eyes and ears in the parts of the state, you know, that are deemed rural. You know, I said, you're just one person, you can't be everywhere. And he said, well, I want to know what's going on in all corners of the state. And so, you know, we met again and they kind of brainstormed a position and then they offered it to me. And I was amazed by that. Kind of caught me off guard a little bit. I never expected anything like that, and saw it as a new opportunity to help my neighbors. And so what we're doing is, you know, we're creating this position as we go. I have 16 counties from Western Maryland to Worcester County. And so right now we're taking the time to go and introduce ourselves to the 16 county councils, and then we're going to go to the municipalities in each county and just make sure that everybody knows that, you know, the governor has tasked me with being his eyes and ears in not only Wicomico, but in 15 other jurisdictions in the state, that if you have issues with any state agency, an issue with state highway, an issue with MDE, MDH, we're another opportunity, another avenue to help get those issues resolved by working directly with those agencies with your concerns. We've been able to do that already in Hartford, Washington County, Somerset, and St. Mary's County with kind of fixing some issues, especially if it deals with, the economic aspects, of our separate jurisdictions. And so then the plan is to come up with ways to help you strategize the way best for you to see growth in your county. Some counties want to see a lot of growth, some counties don't. I look at Washington County, they have a big roadmap. There's been a bunch of changes in Washington County over the past decade, and they've really taken advantage of their geographical location with Route 70 and Route I-81, being able to traverse from West Virginia through Delaware, or West Virginia through Maryland into Pennsylvania. And then, of course, I-70 takes you out into the Midwest, and they've really been able to capitalize on that with distribution. And now they want to look to move in towards more of a biotech or a tech sector, kind of piggybacking off the 270 corridor, which runs from D.C. to Frederick County. And I look at our geographic situation here, with the airport and the expansion coming of that. Now we'll be able to handle any aircraft we need to handle. We have the second largest water port in the state, with just about 1 million tons of activity a year, second to, of course, the Port of Baltimore, which averages between 4.5 to 5 million tons a year. And so, we have a unique situation here being on the crossroads of Delmarva, between 50 and 13. We're 2 hours from everywhere, 2 hours from Norfolk, 2 hours from Baltimore, D.C., Philly, 4 hours from New York. I mean, it's a prime situation here to grow. We have the backbone, the tech backbone, the tech infrastructure from Wallops Island here. We have excellent schools, higher learning, Salisbury University, UMES, Warwick. So we have the workforce, we have the ability, we have the location. We need to just figure out what else we can do to kind of put these pieces together. Now, a lot of things are happening organically, which is great. You see what's happening out at the Westwood Park, with flex warehouse space coming, and there's some things that are coming. I've learned in a couple meetings with SWED and the Greater Salisbury Committee that are economic opportunities that are coming to this county and to the lower shore. I mean, it's so that there are things coming, but the governor wants to know if there's something that the state can do, either regulatory, legislatively, whatever the ideas are. Let's put them together and let's see if we can act on them, if it's something that's going to not hinder growth here, because the goal for all of us is to make sure that folks can have the highest quality of life that they deserve, and a lot of that starts with a good paying job, because then it becomes a generational blessing for the generations that come behind them. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity. Again, I get to see things that are happening in all corners of the state and how we can take ideas from Washington County and Hartford County and St. Mary's County, maybe use those ideas here and take ideas that we glean here in Somerset and Worcester and Wicomico and take those out to the western part of the state and kind of do all that cross-pollination, and let's see if we can grow, our economies to the level that we want, together. And so, my plan is to use your plan. It's to take your ideas to the governor and then formulate something together to see what we can do. But initially, it's just to kind of be on the ground to see, first off, where do you want to grow? Where do you want to grow? Going through the comp plan, finding out which geographic locations in and around Salisbury or Pittsville or Mardella or wherever the infrastructure is that can sustain economic growth. Then let's pinpoint that together. And then from that, we can build, maybe there's an expansion of the enterprise zone, or different tax credit areas that are already existing through the state, and maybe, that an expansion of that would allow for someone who's looking to come, and SWED does a great job with an inventory of existing commercial space that's available for people who are looking, like when I was out in Washington County, they have this format set up similar to SWED, that if somebody's calling, wanting to be near I-81, and they say, well, man, I'm looking for 100,000 square feet of warehouse space, they can say, boom, we've got this location, and this location, or we have this pad site, and we have this field ready to go if you want to build, or if you're just ready to move in. So it's a tremendous opportunity I think the governor's given us, and I'm really grateful that he's focused on the rural parts of the state. I mean, I've been a part of 3 administrations now, and I've seen administrations that come and they take a tour downtown Salisbury while they're at Mako or MML, and they take some pictures and off they go. This is the first time I've seen an administration say, okay, well, let's really dig into this and let's be active. And so my plan is to be in each of these 16 counties as close to monthly as possible. And so we've done that. The hard part has been the council meetings, because for some reason, everybody in the state believes they should meet on Tuesday. So, so I've done a lot of doubles. I've been, to Western Maryland in the morning and back to the Upper Shore in the evening to do 2 council meetings at one time, because I want to get the introduction phase of this over with, so that way we can get into the nuts and bolts of seeing, what we can do to help, and how we can help, and how we can facilitate issues that you have with state agencies.
Shannon?
The old Camel Soup building, I think the county received $500,000 for that, but I haven't seen any action on it. I don't know who owns it, but it was supposed to be,
The guy that got the $500,000.
Yes.
in left town.
Wasn't that was supposed to be divvied up, wasn't that, into
Yeah, it was supposed to
smaller
be,
things?
it was supposed to
Davis
be part of
Properties?
it. It was
Or-
Camel Soup building on
Yeah.
West Road.
Uh-huh.
And Julie had signed the grant for $500,000. I don't know if they've gotten it yet, but what happened to that particular project? Because it was supposed to be like either small businesses.
Remember
I think
that.
he bought
They were going-
half.
they were going to-
Yeah, and it hasn't come to fruition yet, and I just want to know what happened to that particular project. Also, we talk about rural economic stuff, strategy. How about the blighted areas?
Well, that would most likely go through
The blighted areas, where
through
would
the-
that go through?
Through the Department of Housing,
Mhm.
which luckily we have the former mayor of Salisbury as the secretary. So I think that's where that works. But again, I can certainly do my best to connect you with someone there to answer questions for you.
Yeah, well, I'll wait till Lori gets in her new position.
To the word, that's it. No better person, right? No better person. I mean,
Yeah,
how did
so I'll wait.
How'd y'all pull this off? Get her
But
from the state?
Director of Rural and Economic Strategy. So we're supposed to come up with a plan and give it to you.
No. I mean, yes. I mean, in an ideal world, I mean, you know best what you need. I mean, granted, it's a little different here because I live here, but it'd be really, really rather rude and kind of not the way to do things. If I go to Washington County and say, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, I don't live in Washington County. It's not fair for me to do that. And then I'm doing exactly what we've all said we don't want to do, which is Annapolis coming here telling us what to do. So then I become that person, and I don't want to be that person. So my plan, again, is to take your ideas and then see what the state can do to help. There may be things that the state cannot do. There may be things that the state can, and our goal is to find answers.
So, yeah, thank you for being here, of course.
Sure.
In the past 2 weeks, I've had more than a half dozen. In the past week, in the past 2 weeks or so, I've had about a half dozen people who have come to me and specifically said that Wicomico County is an awful place to do business. Specifically, City of Salisbury. We've got their words were the mayor is currently trying to stop $250 million of investment coming in to the city.
Yes, yeah.
And that is, by the way, and when those things happen, they don't just magically appear, right? They don't just, that's local jobs. That's Harkins, concrete. You name it. There are local electricians. There are people who have to plan that. So building is important. I'd like to see us continue to move in that kind of direction. I don't think children are going to stop being born here in Wicomico County. I don't think people are going to stop moving here. So as long as our area is growing, we need to facilitate that growth. So regardless of how we are perceived now by the bigger state, of course, which I can't imagine that when the governor and the legislature says, hey, here's $250 million worth of investment that we're going to support. And then we say, you know what? We don't really want that. You can go give it to Montgomery County. They need it over there. I can't imagine that that's a good thing. But regardless, there are things in our county that I think we can do well. We no longer have AMPs in any of Eastern Shore, the agricultural marketing professionals. Those used to be folks that actually worked on the ground to work with agricultural communities, especially in rural areas. There's only a couple counties now that still have AMPs, but that could be something that used to be a partnership done by the state and the counties together. I mentioned to you before the issue with budget for the RIMPIF and Marbidco, those kinds of ones, the Rural Maryland Prosperity Investment Fund, a lot of those funding for that, and then the Maryland Agriculture Education Rural Development Assistance Fund, all in the Rural Maryland Council, those funds there go to a lot of rural serving nonprofits. I think the more that we could, I'm obviously I'm not very clearly we are not going to have a budget we're not going to have an increased budget. There's not going to be a lot of appetite for growing budgets in Maryland. But I think that's one area, I think that's one avenue that could really be helpful for the more that we can build through those institutions, and including groups like Marbidco that are really great for agricultural, forestry outreach, that kind of stuff. They've been building a bunch of new businesses and creating new programs. So I don't know how that work then fits into the larger picture. I know they're through agriculture as opposed to commerce or others. I don't know how that works together, but as a whole, from what I see, I think those could be good avenues to continue to build on. And I don't know how you're thinking through that, but I'd love to help you any kind of way if we're bringing folks together to be thoughtful. But there's definitely some avenues.
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. I mean, you have an expertise in that, and that's kind of the whole point, is to kind of just be the conduit. But I mean, you're the vessel, so it's to take what you're producing and take it over here. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely.
James.
Director, is it Director Anderton now?
It's Carl, man. Come on, you know me. Yeah.
Okay, Carl.
Yeah.
You mentioned Enterprise Zone, and I like that program. I like it because it invites a lot of businesses in the community. And
if it's used properly, yes, absolutely.
And it's
right.
small.
Yep, right.
It's very small in this county, and it's only in certain parts of our. Yeah, it's only in certain parts. I'd like to see some sort of expansion of that, my opinion, and I would like to,
Make it bigger? You said it was small. You want to make it bigger?
Well, yeah, I want to make it a little bigger than what it is, but I would like to be able to extend this to some of our municipalities that have water and sewer, because we've got 8. Is it 8? I think it's 8. Yeah, we have a total of 8 municipalities, and I'm sure Delmar and Hebron would love to be able to partake in that and expand some growth in their little towns.
I agree. I remember, like I said, as mayor, we kept looking into those types of things because, we were right on the border with Delaware, and you see, when you get into Delaware, because that's where all the
businesses.
That's where all the businesses are, right?
Don't you all have the enterprise owned by the state? Don't they provide it through the state, certain areas in your municipalities?
I think it was all centered in Salisbury here. I could be wrong on that. It's been about 10 years
Maybe
since I was.
inquired.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something you need to inquire.
So I know we inquired 10 years ago when I was there.
I mean, you're doing rural economic,
Right.
that part, be part of the economic.
That's just something that I think, if you have any influence at all, I think me personally, I think that would be something worthwhile trying to expand to help.
I agree, but the problem, then there's legislation every year to do away with the enterprise zone. So we have to be, mindful of that to make sure that doesn't happen, because I do think that is a benefit. Some programs may not be beneficial, but I think that's one that is. That and the Rise Zone and other things that are put in place to help economic growth and
targeted.
Right.
I think probably one of your best resources would be through the Tri-County Council. And as you know, I mean, there are tri-counties, I wouldn't say tri-counties, but there are different associations throughout our
absolutely.
state. I don't know if there's 7 of them, I'm not quite sure.
So,
But at least for our region is what we would be worried about, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've met with the Midshore
We're only worried about.
Right.
we're
I
only
know,
worried
but I'm
about-
just saying, I'm working my way,
I got
working my
you.
way down,
You
right?
can stay down here.
Yep.
But, because I know that we get involved very heavily with the SEDS document, which is exactly economic development, which is what that is all about. And you can look at that and you can see every single goal for Wicomico County and Worcester and Somerset right away, immediately. So that could be a really good start for you. You mentioned Dave, and Dave Ryan's always got his pulse on everything. And through MACO, have you had any conversations yet with the Rural Counties Coalition?
No, we're getting to that after this, so, yeah, we're making our way through. Like I said, we've only been at this now for about 2 months.
Right.
So,
We had
Yeah.
someone at the podium tonight asking us to ask you specifically what your goals were.
right, I remember when she cornered me a month ago, I was like, I haven't even figured out where to park in Baltimore yet, so.
All right, it's been asked.
Yes, right.
Been asked.
By the
Yes.
stadium.
Jeff, comment, Joe?
Yeah, right.
Enterprise zones are good for people that are in them, not too good for the people that aren't in them. But anyway, I'm going to put it on more of a personal perspective. My wife opened up a couple of booths at one of the antique malls, and so we go to the clerk's office to get a business license. They said, well, you have to have a sales tax number, so we go to the sales tax office. They've changed the system up. Nobody at the sales tax office knows how to get us a sales tax number. So it took 2 months to get a business license, and then last week she finally got the business license after we finally got the sales tax number, and then we got 2 letters said that we'd been denied a sales tax number.
Is there a reason why, or?
No, who knows? I mean, you don't have to go in. We got it. She's happy. She fussed. She threatened to divorce me over it. But anyway, it take 2 months to get a business license, and then you're talking about trying to make business easier. But what's the situation? I just heard Josh mention something about somebody trying to kill a $250,000 business or something. $1 billion business.
Billion,
Yeah. What's the story with that? I don't understand.
I'm not totally versed on it, but I know that there was another project downtown that there was state money allocated for to help with infrastructure underground. And I guess the mayor has a different vision than the previous mayor.
Mm-hmm.
And, so.
That's what we elect mayors and councils
Right.
for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think the state should come tell you what to do.
Yeah. So, anyway.
See? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's that?
That's why you're here.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, it's their prerogative. They elected the mayor, and if the mayor decides he wants to move in a different direction,
Okay.
then, that's,
I hadn't heard about that.
Right.
So.
Have any questions, comments? Anything else you want to add?
no, it's good to be home.
Yeah. Good to see it.
Yeah, it's good to be home. And so we'll be down here quite often. Again, like I said, working with, the chamber, SWED, Greater Salisbury Committee, any groups that have ideas, I'm open to meet with anybody, to see where we can come to an agreement on things that maybe can be done at the state level to help, But again, the first thing is kind of learning exactly, when Councilman Holloway was talking about enterprise zones, that if they need to be somewhere else, to find out what the criteria is, and if we can make it fit that criteria, then find out how we can move that around, because, if, so that way we can move that around and adjust it as needed, so we can maximize our opportunities, for growth. Again, like I said, you have the bones here. I mean, we've always had it our whole life. I've always heard the airport, the water port, Route 50, Route 13, that we have everything here. It's like, okay, let's figure out what we want to do with it. And we will. I mean, we have this opportunity. I really want to make the most of it. And so we'll be spending a lot of time together, Mr. President, you and myself, not on the golf course.
Do you take information back to the governor?
Yes,
We'll
absolutely.
tell him to quit raising fees and taxes.
Yes, well, he didn't do that. So we'll start with that one. He didn't do that. That was the legislature.
Come on.
Yeah, that was a bill in the legislature. So, if we're
300
going
and some fees?
to, if we're going to call it, let's call it.
Every one of them was the legislature?
Every one of them's from the legislature. I was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
You voted against it, right?
I voted against it. Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yes, but I was there. So no, so if we're going to call it, we'll call it straight. But it's a good opportunity. I hope I can just make the most of it and and continue to do the best I can for the people I live near. So thanks for letting me come hang out, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell Kendall we said hello.
Oh, by the way, if Kendall's watching, I'm sure, although she shouldn't because she just had a baby the other day, but she's already been texting me today about the meeting tonight. I'm like, I'm sure you got other things you need to do. But
Sounds like her.
Tell her congratulations on that.
you can tell her right now.
I'll
She-
tell her.
Yeah, congrats.
Congrats, Kendall.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, brother. Yep.
Next item on the agenda is the reevaluation of the Horizon program. I believe that's certainly why Ms. Oland is here and Mr. Illuminati. How are you both?
I think you all answered what you were wanting to do. You showed your cards earlier, so if you are going to reconsider it, then obviously defining what the tax assessment notification is clearly important. There's also some concern about what role the executive and the council play in referring it, whether it's a blanket approval. If you meet X qualification, then it's just a formality, the council must approve it, or whether or not it can be considered on its merits. But outside of that, this is a legislative matter, and
I think the only other thing would be is if council intends to keep it, that we clarify date of receipt of assessment. That would, because right now it just says receipt of assessment. So if council is keeping this, that might need to be,
Maybe we need to take a consensus to see if we're going to keep it before we get into too much conversation.
Yeah, 100%.
so again, that's the first question.
Do we have a consensus to, is the consensus to keep it or to let it sunset?
Let it sunset.
Let it sunset.
At sunset.
Yeah, there you go.
all right, so that
Okay.
will need a legislative bill. We can prepare that and that concludes.
Close the work session.
Exactly.
You guys have a good rest of your evening.
You too.
See how easy it is when we're right?
Andrew, we may want to
Andrew.
use the seafood
I will be,
ordinance.
I'm staying.
No, I'm just,
Want me to stay up here? or-
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I was just joking.
Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Andrew.
He'll be up here in a minute.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the proposed seafood ordinance.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
James, I'll give you the floor if you don't mind. Joe, we're almost done, though.
Or it's going to be 10 o'clock.
John didn't want to be here until 10, he said.
I know. Did everyone get a chance to read this, or should I read this whole?
No,
No, don't read it.
You don't have
no,
to read it.
no.
We're good.
Okay, so I can say it in a nutshell. What it is pretty much this gives our watermen and the people in that industry some teeth. Pretty much it's like the Right to Farm Act, but for watermen. So it's essentially the same thing. It allows them to be able to, if somebody moves into the area, let's say down in Tyaskin, and they build a bunch of houses on the water in front of an oyster farmer or a crabber or what have you, then the new residents will be issued a form, and they would have to look at it, and it would inform them that there's a seafood ordinance in the county. They don't have to sign it. It doesn't require them that they have to sign this thing, but this pretty much lets them know that we hold our watermen in high regard, and we want to protect them, and that if they look at the situation and they say, well, I don't like this waterman at 5 o'clock in the morning getting his oysters out of the bed in front of my house, they can't take him to court and stop him from doing his job. And it's the same goes if he's at the dockyard and he's unloading his crab traps at the boat ramp, and he has to drive around and park his boat and get his truck and load up his crab traps. It protects that person from, let's just say, somebody like me or some other person come over there and say, you can't do that. We're going to call the police. You can't leave all of this stuff here. This is something that is ordinary in that field, and they have to do this so they can actually work. So it allows them to be able to do their job without being hindered. And if there is complaints, there is a board. There is a board that's made up, I believe it's 5 individuals, And there's 3 that are in the waterman industry and 2 that are residents in the community. And they meet once a year to discuss any kind of legal consequences or anything that's happened that's a problem with what's going on with the seafood industry. And I would like to also mention that this is not just an ordinance that I just created out of thin air. This is actually something that Somerset County has already. Their waterman community is much larger than ours, but I do know we have about, I think, around 10 watermen in our community. And we do have like not seafood restaurants, but wholesalers. And this would give like the wholesalers that have the crab tracks and the commercial trucks the ability to protect themselves. Let's say somebody unloads a bunch of crabs at at one of the places where you pick up crab. I don't want to mention any names, but one of the places where you go buy a bushel of crabs for a crab feast and they're already cooked. Well, there's flies in the area. A neighbor that just moved in there can't say you can't operate this business because of the flies. So this kind of protects that business because they were there first. I know that was a lot. I'm sorry about that.
That was good. No, that was very thorough. We did.
I agree. I mean, I don't have an issue, but I'll be a little bit of a devil's advocate here.
Okay.
I see that you have the paper that has to be signed when real estate transfer is done. Right. Okay, and we have that now for the right to farm. As far as the ag, if they're buying in the ag district, because we've been through all this with the DAF tank and all the problems we've had there. What about people that are already there that hasn't signed this? And that's the first question. The second question is, does this board meet to be the word I'm trying to find, a mediating board between the complainant and the waterman if there is a complaint? Is this part of that board's charge?
I believe so. Somerset County.
Yeah, arbitrating.
Yeah.
That's the word, mediate, arbitrate, yeah.
I've got to reread this entire thing to
No,
make sure I'm
that's all right.
on par with
It's
you.
just some questions we need to know about.
Yes. I do know there will be 3, it's a board of 5, and 3 of them will be in the industry. And 2 of them will be just residents in the community.
I haven't read this whole thing, but I'll read it.
Okay.
But it's a good thing. I mean, I think maybe there might be some things we need to address up.
My question is, how many, I remember down the road, there was cold water, but how many businesses actually, it's something like Chrisfield? Do we have any of those kind of businesses?
Are you talking about the shedding houses?
The one that processes like crab meat?
We do have a few. It's not many. And
In
it's
Wicomico County?
do we have one? Oh wait, that's you.
You're looking at him.
We're looking at him.
Who is that? Who's that?
That's Joe.
Where is he located?
He's down Quantico.
Oh, you in Quantico?
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
I'm the only licensed shucking house
right.
in Wicomico County.
Do you
Right.
sell the things there? Oh, you do?
You're gonna have to get his number.
Family run and operated. It is.
Can you use the microphone? Because we won't be able to pick it.
Sure. Come. I mean, is that all right?
Just to give you an idea, we have checked this with the Somerset County Commissioners to see if it's been a problem, because Somerset has it.
Yeah.
They said it has been a problem since it's been initiated down there for several years. And we also sent it to the Coastal Association of Realtors, because that's the industry that would be impacted by it. They did not seem to have a problem with it at all.
Okay.
So it looks like we've cleared those 2 hurdles.
Okay.
To make sure we're okay. But go ahead. Thank you.
Your question.
Your phone number.
Seriously?
I'm serious.
Well, later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay, I'll give
later.
it to you later.
Yeah,
Can I do-
uh-huh.
I'll email you. I can email you. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Email you?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Be happy to do that. I will say this, this has actually been something that's been on a lot of watermen. The watermen in Wicomico County are actually decreasing every year. And there's about 10 of us that are full-time in the Nanticoke bivalve. There's a couple up in Sharptown. But what I'm saying is full-time, still grinding at it. You get what I'm going with. There's about 50 to 75 part-time people that still make their money on the water, but they may be a fireman, or they may be a police officer, they may be somebody that's semi-retired. But this actually protects the whole industry. And one of the things, and I kind of, it's a shame Mr. Anderton wasn't here, but Mr. Anderton, actually, I wanted to tee off of something that he said with his economic development. I struggled in 2018 to actually get anything approved in Wicomico County to open up a shucking house. And had it not been for Mr. Anderton, I can say that in all honesty, he got me actually all the way up the chain to the Department of Environment, to the Secretary of Environment, who actually got the shucking house approved. With that, what I have noticed is that, and I don't want it to sound bad, but one of the things that has happened is that as the influx of people that come from out of town, not Wicomico County residents, or even Somerset and whatever other counties, let's just say they retire here from various other reasons, and typically city folks, one of the things that they say is that your industry starts too early. State law requires us to start early. That's one of the big things that we have to face all the time. We have time frames that we can work. We're only allowed to work certain hours, certain days. And when all that stuff comes together, we're really pushed in a corner. And the watermen, now that they're, the guys who are here tonight, they're my age, so I'm 53. I'm the youngest, if that tells you anything. And I have a son that's actually coming into this. He's a Mardella graduate, 4.6 grade point average. Wants to be a captain, wants to work on the water, and I don't see a future here for the watermen being protected in this atmosphere that we're facing right now. And in this, a lot of the things James was explaining, like flies and noises and different things, crab pots, that kind of stuff. One of the things that we face on a daily basis is in the aquaculture industry with the oyster farming, shells, dump trucks sometimes. There's a bigger grower, Mr. Harrington. I don't want to speak for him, but probably the biggest in the state of Maryland. There's complaints that I hate to say it, we just start early. And that's sometimes when your oyster bed that traditionally in your family, it's like a family farm, when it's been operated a couple generations, 3, 4, 5 generations, the people buy the house in front of that. And then after they move there and live there a little while, and we're out there at 5 o'clock working, but done by 10, what happens is we start to get calls from the state. And it's actually happened to me this year personally, and it's happened to other watermen throughout the years. So Somerset County actually adopted this, and it was this one that I shared with you guys. I hate to say it, it was copied verbatim from Somerset County, put Wicomico in place of all the things that we did in the ordinance, and it was all slipped in. All I'm asking you guys to do is to look at it, consider changes. I'm okay with that. Consider whatever it is that you may consider, but see if we can support our local watermen on this aspect on the west side. And we got seafood, so check us out.
We asked the DNR for the licensed watermen in Wicomico County. We get a number like 150 some. Where did that number come from?
It's based on, how can I tell you this? There is about 150 working watermen in Wicomico County. The main harbors that you find these guys working out of is Nanticoke, and what I'm going to tell you is that those are the core. Now, does that mean that the licensed waterman doesn't have a slip in Cambridge and works out of Cambridge or Hoopers Island?
All right, okay.
We're all
That
water
explains
gypsies. I might be in Hoopers Island next month
Okay.
based on the oyster population.
If you could, just for the record, we would need you to state your name and your company, just so that we have it for the minutes.
Oh, yes, sir. Joe Lappin, and it's Captain Joe Seafood.
Great, that's it, that's all. Yes, James, yes, Josh.
Just one more quick thing,
Wrap
just
it up.
just in continue. I have no problem with this at all. I think continuing in Councilman Holloway's, analysis, I guess, of saying, are there parts of this that we could cut? Do we need to, obviously, the challenges in general of, we're growing government by doing this, which shouldn't be a major problem, but theoretically, any boards still have to have Open Meetings Act, still have to be staffed by somebody. the question of whether we need a particular board, do we need a body? I don't have any strong feelings at that, but if there's ways that we can streamline this or integrate it with maybe with something that we already have as far as Board of Zoning Appeals or something like that, maybe that could make more sense.
That's a good point.
And then the last things in here is just got a couple things like fines for enforcement. I know all of those things are just generally administrative costs that go along with that. James, I'll look to you for maybe for leadership on those kind of things, but anything that we can do to try to streamline it to fit in with current government and
Simplify it.
yeah, and to not preferably not grow any more government.
The only thing I could think of, Josh, is, well, not the only thing, but one of the things that I think of is if we integrate it with another commission, then we don't have the watermen being represented in that commission. That would be the...
Yeah, say if I push back, I mean, I work with with farm community all the time, so this comparable having a, right to farm kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Some of them have ag boards that you basically go before, but basically there's nobody going to these except for Talbot County. There's very few folks, and a lot of the ones that were created 20 years ago are no longer even, they're on the books. So the question of whether we need it, I don't know. But if there's any way we can keep it streamlined, I think that would be good.
Well, sometimes the council acts as the health commission, right? So in a sense, it could be a possibility that the council could take on that responsibility as a separate entity.
That's true.
Yeah, it could be possible. But I like what you said, Josh.
I can say that I know that Somerset County, the guys that are there that are on that board, that it's basically established and set up. You'll see as you read it the breakdown of how it is. What I can tell you is that there's been very little to no arbitration. In all honesty, like when we've had complaints, I'll be honest with you, I called the state and I told the state to have the complainant call me directly. I'm happy to work with them. I think you'll find that what's left of our generation, we're I hate to say it, very compliant, very easily workable people within the guidelines that the state requires us to follow as far as their laws and their guidance on that. I'm all ears. I'm willing to work with whatever in support of this in any fashion. And if you can help us guys down there in the Bivalve, Nanticoke, and just the watermen in Wicomico County in general, I certainly would appreciate it. And I will say I gave you an email that was sent today through Gino Lowe, who is through the Wicomico County Farm Bureau. They're actually also considering, we're actually considered under the Farm Bureau aquaculture as part of that. So we fit in that mold. One of the things that Gino and I had talked about today is that the state seems to try and separate the farmers and the watermen. Now, I don't know why, but we can only use our imagination on some things and some reasonings with that. But yeah. But I really am looking at a possible seat on the board and just maybe seeing if I can offer suggestions and have their support as well. So. Anyway.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lapham. I appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Consideration.
Mr. President, I know
Yes.
Going back to the water and sewer thing, I'm sure Ms. Hurley knows this, but in the county, in the state legislation, there's a public hearing requirement, but you have to give the principal elected official of each municipal corporation 14 days notice.
Yeah, it has to be advertised 2 weeks.
But you have
and
to-
I've already got the notice drafted
Right.
and have sent it to.
So I assume it has to go to the mayor of Salisbury.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, with all due respect, I think you guys need to have a work session on this issue, because maybe you all understand it, but I don't, because the applicant in this is Wicomico County. It's not the city of Salisbury, it's Wicomico County. I'm looking at the form that's filled out, Wicomico County Department of Public Works. They're the ones that are gonna build this system. The money may come from the state, but the county's gonna build it. And with all due respect, the city of Salisbury's plan says that, if there is a public health issue, they will provide service, but it still requires this annexation, either immediate or at some point in the future. And I don't know how you're going to get people in those communities to sign these applications. Why would he have sit there and said that? I'm just, maybe I don't understand something, Mr. Holloway. All I'm saying is, unless you all understand it, I don't understand it. Because I read the city's
water and sewer extension agreement, and it clearly says that they're not going to do urban service agreements anymore. And it clearly, the form that has to be filled out says, that this, in areas that have a public health concern, they will provide service, but the property owner has to sign something saying they'll be annexed if they're contiguous, and if they're not contiguous, they have to sign something saying they will agree to be annexed if and when the city of Salisbury agrees to annex them. I think you're going to have a lot of people in those areas who are not going to sign those
The
agreements.
one on North and South Delano already
So, it needs to be done somehow, but somebody needs to come in and explain, and I think somebody from the city needs to be sitting at the table so the council understands what they're willing to do.
I think just on that note, just to be clear, there's those situations, well, we just heard from Purdue, if you saw the news regarding the forever chemicals, and we saw with the tetrachloroethylene, the TCE situation in Fruitland area. We've got those kinds of, they're the mechanisms that the state and the federal government have set up to be able to say that when there's a big issue of a public health concern, septic systems or taking in, the effluent, that may be a little bit different than a dangerous chemical, but nonetheless, the state has set up certain situations when you need to then rapidly grab a particular area and give them public, services, water or sewer, or usually water, then that makes sense. But the challenge here, I guess, is that so for a situation like with was it Morse Mill or whatever the one or the TCE, there are folks who basically, hey, I don't want to be included, I don't want to pay for that. But if they don't, then we are allowing them to then take in dangerous chemicals or do it. So I don't know. I know that there's some aspect of that, but this is not an immediate. Whether or not you're drinking too many nitrates is not as bad as a chemical issue.
I will defer, but my understanding is when you did the thing down at Morse Mill, the city of Fruitland agreed to an urban services district.
Right. And you're right. I mean, this is just a really brief introduction of it all, but, the state of Maryland's not going to give you that priority funding if you can't actually say, oh, we have 15 people who want it. They're not going to spend that kind of money.
Amending the plan is a no-brainer from my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the next step. I don't understand the next step.
Right.
And I'm afraid that if they get the funding in January or February or March, they're going to be coming back and wanting you guys to do something, and I don't understand what you're supposed to do.
Again, I don't think the state's going to commit to that type of funding unless they have proof that there's the need and the willingness of the individual homeowners to sign on, right? It's cart before the horse, carrot stick. But understood, yeah. Any other comments? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Are we good? Are we done with, we're done with the seafood?
Yeah, I mean,
What I'll do is I'll work with Mr. Benson and put something in draft form and send it to you, James.
Okay.
And
Because I
then we'll,
think it definitely needs to be, the legal definitely needs to look at this because it's not particularly geared for our county.
Right.
So it definitely needs some adjustments, I think.
yeah,
But,
yeah. And based on feedback tonight, I'll see if I can maybe shorten it a little.
Yeah, you could.
I was okay with that, right? I mean, it was, yeah.
Okay, all right.
All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So if-
Second.
Not here until 10.